Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching third part of What If Naruto Became Curse of Hatred. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Naruto Uzumaki, but most people call him Ryu Yokazi, was making a unique seal that he planned to get tattooed on his body. He was kneeling on the floor of his new hotel room wearing only black pants. His old hotel room had been damaged by the Iwa Nin after they kidnapped him, which made the hotel manager very angry. Several sealing symbols were written all over his body, and they all came together on the back of his neck. "Is it ready, Zetsu?" Naruto asked with a lot of authority. The plant man answered, "Yes, yes. But why am I doing this? I don't wish for a repeat of my kidnapping a few days ago. Sealing isn't an easy art. It takes time to create advanced seals that could have warded off the Iwa Nins such as barrier seals, but they take time. Time that I do not have the luxury of having," pointed out Naruto. Even though the Uzumaki felt terrible about how easily he was caught, he knew that barrier seals and protective wards are hard to make, and he didn't have time to make them because he was busy with missions from the Mizukage in his earlier date. This seal Zetsu is similar in design to my chakra nature seals on the palms of my hands, where I subconsciously channel chakra into the seal and when I activate it, it changes into one of my nature affinites. However, this seal activates on its own when it feels a disturbance in my chakra when I'm under a genjutsu or when my body is feeling sensations it shouldn't feel. When I'm under a genjutsu it disrupts the flow of my chakra breaking me from the genjutsu, and say if I was unconscious it would send a jolt of lightning chakra through my body restarting my brain, breaking me from unconsciousness, explained Naruto, and Zetsu nodded in agreement. Must have taken a while to develop. Black Zetsu asked, "How do I move the seal to your neck?" "Perform the boar, tiger, snake, horse, rabbit and ox hand seals, then place your hand on my neck and focus your chakra in your palm," Naruto went on. After doing the necessary hand seals, Zetsu put his gentle hand on Naruto's neck. The blonde's body was marked with symbols that moved up his body and focused on the back of Naruto's neck. Zetsu wondered if this was hurting Naruto, but he saw signs of pain coming from the person using the Sharingan. Naruto had trained with Madara to be very resistant to pain, so this was really hurting him. Finally, all of Naruto's symbols had made it to his neck. Zetsu took off his hand and saw a sun with curved flames coming out of it. As Naruto put his hand over the seal, he said, "Thank you, Zetsu." Naruto asked without any emotion, "Tell me, have you found a place to train that suits my tastes?" The plant man shook its head at this, which made Naruto sigh. The training ground in the mountain's graveyard wasn't finished yet, no matter how many white Zetsus were working on it. "And what do you want in a training ground?" White Zetsu asked with a smile. Naruto looked at Zetsu with mild irritation as he continued to ask the question. "Someplace dark where the light of the sun doesn't shine as brightly so I can improve upon my senses, that doesn't require sight, preferably with lots of terrain so I can adapt to an environment where the land doesn't favor me. Also a place cut off from society where not many people would know of its existence." "That would be perfect." Naruto spoke as he prepared some green tea in the hotel's small kitchen. Zetsu obeyed his master and nodded. But there was one question that the plant man didn't understand, and it was bothering him. Zetsu asked, "Why didn't you kill Sasuke Uchiha?" While he drank his tea, Naruto looked at Zetsu without any emotion. White Zetsu knew that look all too well. It always scared him, and either he'd fall to the ground dead or Naruto would answer him, even though Black Zetsu had nothing to worry about. "You're asking why I killed the one person in the whole world who I had a good reason to kill." Naruto stopped speaking and thought carefully about what to say. "You're asking why I spared him and not the other way round." Zetsu gave the blonde another nod. "I wish to kill Sasuke Uchiha when he is at the prime of his power, when he is ready to face me in mortal combat like last time. I wish to feel the thrill of fighting with a powerful opponent. I wish to feel my blood pumping through my arteries and adrenaline coursing through my body while sweat drips off my brow and my knuckles become bloody from all my attacks," Naruto said with a sickly smile. "I didn't kill him because I wanted to, I didn't kill him because he didn't deserve to die by my blade. He's still weak, and until we have the same eyes, he's not worthy of being called my equal or greater or lesser." As Naruto went on, "I was thoroughly disappointed with his growth in power, unlike mine." Zetsu said, "He doesn't have the same potential that you do." The man with two colors got a shrug from Naruto. Naruto turned the conversation away from Sasuke and said, "You know, I was surprised that the old goat let me live after he found out about that." Zetsu agreed with the blonde. Having learned that information, he could only guess why Madara had let Naruto live. Perhaps he did it to get back at that mother, he began, but Zetsu cut him off. When from inside the hotel room he heard the sound of a door opening. She came in dressed as Konan, the Akatsuki. Her neutral face was showing all of its power. The women with blue hair knew that Ryu would talk to Zetsu a lot because the plant man spy would be Yokeza's closest friend. He didn't trust her right away, and she didn't trust him either. He still hadn't told her everything about his plan, but she thought he would. Konan said, "I'd like to talk to you." Konan knew it was okay to go ahead when Ryu shrugged his shoulders. Alone. Ryu looked at Zetsu, sending the plant man a silent message. Zetsu started to sink into the ground, and the end of its Venus flytrap closed. After Zetsu left, Ryu looked at Konan with eyes that seemed to say, "You have my attention." After a deep breath, Konan chose to say what was on her mind. "I really want you to meet Nagato," Konan said with certainty. Naruto blankly said, "I met him not long ago." Konan let out a frustrated sigh. The female Akatsuki member went on, "I meant the real you. Nagato must know that he's being manipulated by your fake, Obito." Naruto kept staring at Konan without doing anything. Nagato may be under the effects of Genjutsu. Obito was able to control Yagura, the Yondaime Mizukage and a Jinchuriki. Placing a Jinchuriki who had full control of their Biju in a Genjutsu is not an easy thing. In fact, it may be impossible for someone without the Sharingan. Shared with Naruto. The king asked, "How can you be so sure?" "It's a likely theory, because it sounds like something I would do." "Sounds like Rai." Konan kept looking at Rai, because she didn't know what to say next. She had a lot of thoughts going through her head. Even though she was now a part of Ryu's plan, she wasn't given all the information she had hoped to get later. She could agree in her mind, though, that they needed more lieutenants. Is anybody within the Akatsuki working with Obito? Konan wanted to know. I believe so. Kisame would be the most likely suspect, since during his time within the Land of Water, Obito would have met with Kisame and offered him a position as his right hand, and he would have brought up his stupid prospects so to coerce him. Yelled at Naruto. Since Kisame was a strong supporter of Yagura, Konan agreed with the Sharingan bearer because it seemed likely that Kisame would work with Obito. I will not meet with Nagato not until Obito has been dealt with, and that's a few months away. We will continue to act like regular Akatsuki members in the meantime," said Naruto. After taking a book out of her cloak and giving it to Ryu, Konan said, "Also you should read this." Page 14. Ryu went to that page and saw the picture of himself that Konoha had used. Which country does this bingo book belong to? While he was with Konan and the Mizukage in the Land of Water, Land of Lightning asked, "Care to explain how you were in the Land of Lightning?" Konan was very interested. Ryu looked like he sighed, and his shoulders sagged. "That's fine, but for now, let's just. What do teens say? Let's chill," Naruto said in a strange way. He still hadn't really interacted with other people and didn't seem to understand some idioms. Kumogakure. Earlier by one day. The Raikage's loud, resonant voice could be heard all over his village, like a sword cutting through flesh. He clenched his fist and smashed his desk, breaking it into many pieces. His assistant Mabui didn't seem to mind that pieces of the desk hit her in the face. In front of his right handman, the Raikage yelled, "What do you mean that the Kagerou temple was raided?" "It's exactly what I said, boss. The Kajiro temple was sacked," Darui said in a cold voice. The way he was sitting showed that he was feeling a bit lazy. And as if the Kage's headache wasn't bad enough, his brother walked in the door. "Yo say ho bro." "Yeah." Killer Bee rapped while moving around. "I'm sorry if my raps are bad. I really can't rap for shit." As the Raikage elbowed the Hachibi Jinchuriki in the face, yelling, "Go away Bee." The rapper's face filled with anime tears. When his brother scolded and hit Killer Bee, he rolled up into a ball and yelled, "Why do you have to be so mean? I'm just living the dream." To avoid drawing attention to his stupid brother, it turned his attention to his assistant and a close friend. "Darui, were there any survivors from the temple?" The Raikage asked as he did his exercises to control his anger. "Yeah boss, only one. His wounds were not that bad and I had Mabui look into his psychological damage." "This is so dull," said Darui calmly. A gave the somewhat lazy shinobi a nod of the head. Once A's temper had calmed down, he asked, "Have we questioned the soldier?" Mabui chose to answer. "No. We were waiting for your okay to begin the interview, Mabui said in a calm voice. Okay, start questioning them right away. I need to find out who has the relic that the monks were guarding or if they really did find it, he said as he quickly left the room, leaving Mabui and Darui behind. B followed them, but he was a little behind and had a big bump on his cheek. They asked more questions on the way. Who found out that the temple had been attacked by outsiders? That's what the Raikage, Darui, Mabui, and Killer B, who had caught up to the three, asked. There was Yugito Ni, and she was coming back from a mission you gave her. Mabui, who was still calm, answered. And in what state was the temple when she discovered it? Apparently boss, most of the monks were slaughtered, their limbs torn from their bodies and their throats and other vital organs were nothing but mashed up blood. It wasn't a dull sight. She activated her flare kunai and alerted our teams to her location. I myself was among one of the teams that saw the flare. Darui replied as he scratched the side of his skull. I gave this a nod. But how did someone find the temple? Only high-level shinobi of Kumogakure know it exists, Mabui asked. He was interested, but none of the other three bothered to look behind them and see B working on his raps. As long as they don't have the relic, it's okay with me, said A, who had slowed down. The four Kumo shinobi could see their Anbu headquarters. They went to the room where the survivor was and found them. It looked like Yugito Ni was waiting for them outside the door. Yugito bowed a little and said, Raikage. Sama. The Raikage gave a head nod. Darui tells me that you were the one that discovered the monastery in disarray. Said the sage. This made Yugito nod her head. I was also the one who discovered the only survivor among the monks. Replied Yugito. He's inside, but be careful, he suffered serious mental trauma and is now easily scared from the experience. His name is Ikusa and Raikage. Sama, please be gentle with him, said Yugito softly. When I opened the door, I saw the survivor sitting on a wooden chair next to a table. There was another chair right next to them. What shocked A, though, was learning that the survivor was only 10 years old and dressed like a monk. They wore gray and white hakamas with long sleeves that covered their arms and hands. The boy's obi was light blue instead of red, which might have been a sign of his monkly rank. That was Ikusa. A sat down in the empty chair across from the boy. Tell me, Ikusa, what happened at the temple? And who raided it? Asked A. A boy remembered the events of the slaughter and said, there was so much carnage. He was talking about the white tiger. While hiding, it almost caught the boy and killed him. The man in the black armor was also about to die. He scared him the most. He just looked. It looked like he didn't feel anything, like he really didn't care or feel sorry for what he did. He remembered how his father, Tatakai, confronted the man and was killed. He saw his father being killed in front of him like a sick animal while using the relic he had sworn to protect with his life. The boy said, there. There was a man. A leaned forward and paid close attention to everything Ikusa said. He wore black samurai-like armor and had a long, sleeveless coat and its edges were tattered along with a hood and 3 silver magatama on each collar. He also had blonde hair and red eyes. A's eyes lit up with recognition. He had heard of this person who fit Ikusa's description. He was the only one who could have done it. He just needed more information. Does he have the relic? Does he have the Tanbogiri? No. Tsurugi, dragonfly cutting sword. Asked A quickly. What did Ikusa's brown eyes look for when he looked into the cages? He started to say, yes. He used the sword too. But stopped because he was crying so hard. Tears were falling out of his eyes like rain. To murder my father. A's eyes got bigger with sadness and fear. Tatakai used to be his friend, but when they were teens, they stopped being friends and went their separate ways. He was broken when he heard he was dead, but he had to get over it because the dragon now had the Tanbogiri. Maui, write down anything Ikusa can tell you about the criminal's skills. I need to add a new number to the bingo book, and Ikusa, you are now a shinobi of Kumo. That's what A said as he left the room, with Darui following him and B writing his raps while Yugito went her own way. The Raikage could tell that Ikusa wanted revenge, but Ikusa himself was too sad to see it. If he wanted to get back at his father, becoming a monk wouldn't let him, but becoming a shinobi would. When A walked into his office, he pulled out Konoha's bingo book and read everything there was to read about this ninja. He read every page of the raider of the Kajiro temple and frowned and scowled. Everything about the man showed that he was born to kill, trained in all aspects of shinobi arts and combat, and a man who could compete with a cage. If the Raikage compared shinobi to dogs, this man would be a wolf. This is what the Raikage said, Ryu Yokaze. Now in Hawaii. As Hokage of Konoha, Tsunade Senju was taking care of her duties. She felt torn because she was about to tell the village the biggest secret and biggest disappointment about a certain young blonde who had died. It had been months of arguing with herself. She had talked to Jiraiya, Kakashi, and Shikaku, and they all told her the same thing: wait until they're calmed down, then tell them. Another person on that list was supposed to be a boy who was like a son to her. She turned her head to the left and saw a picture of her and the blonde Uzumaki hugging and smiling on the way to Konoha. The memory made her smile too. She felt something wet on her cheek, and when she ran her hand over it, she saw a single tear. She would gladly admit that she loved the blonde like family. She should have been there for him more, done more for him, admitted her mistakes, and fixed them. She should have told her that she would look out for him, but what good did that do? What she gave him was really cursed because it had killed someone important to her before. She put her fingers on the sides of her head to protect herself. She had to be careful because she was walking on dangerous ground where even a small step could set off the dominoes. As soon as Sarutobi turned into a Chunin, she planned to tell Naruto. She also planned to do it after he died. She knew that even though he was a fool and not the smartest knife in the drawer, Naruto had a huge amount of potential. She had never seen someone with so much power potential before, not even Jiraiya, Orochimaru, Tsukumo, or Minato. She knew that Naruto would one day be better than her grandfather Hashirama, even if he didn't have the Kyuubi no Yoko. Then she frowned. Kyuubi hadn't been seen in years because its chakra was still coming together and the fox hadn't taken shape yet. It would be less than 3 years before the Kyuubi got back together. And she couldn't have caught the Kyuubi without people like her grandfather Hashirama Senju, Madara Uchiha, or Kushina Uzumaki. She got up from her chair and turned around to face her village. The weather seemed to know how she was feeling. There were clouds over the bright blue sky, making it look like a blanket. The sun was dim, and it looked like it was going to rain. The cracking of thunder could also be heard coming from the clouds. She also saw that the village was darker, as if the clouds were blocking the sun and making everything look gray. The bad weather was just too much. Homura and Kaharu told her not to tell everyone about Naruto's heritage, but she was Hokage, and the people had a right to know that their greatest hero had died and left a legacy that had been broken. Her thoughts were like fire that went through her. He said he didn't want to be in the village when it happened because he already knew how the people would react. It would have been better if the man with white hair was with her. There was a knock on the door, and she let the person in. And a person in a mask who was made of silver that defied gravity walked through. Kakashi asked, "Are you going to do it today?" Tsunade gave Kakashi a nod. Kakashi said, "You know there's going to be a fuss." Tsunade, who was still facing Kakashi, said, "I don't care. They deserve to know the truth, and they can't deny it. We have a lot of proof." The Kakashi asked, "What about his full heritage?" And Tsunade said, "That will be told later, just not now." But the two people inside didn't know that someone else was watching them from the roof. "It's time. I hope he's finished his project." He was currently drawing seals on a piece of clothing for Naruto, which is something he had been doing before his father died. In addition to his armor, he had spent the last 6 months training and making the perfect ninja outfit. The armor was useful, and he loved the way it looked, but Zetsu said he needed to look more shinobi-like. So he was making an outfit that was both stylish and useful for him, and he was adding seals to it to make it even more useful. He was almost done. At that moment, Zetsu appeared from the ground, and his Venus flytrap was the only thing that could be seen of the genetic clone. Zetsu said, "Naruto, it's time." Naruto gave his subordinate a nod, and his emotionless face showed. Naruto took off all of his clothes except his boxers. Zetsu just looked. So the blonde started getting dressed in his new clothes. He was now dressed in sleek black pants that came to his heels, black calf high boots lined with silver, and black gloves. But his new cloak stood out more than anything else in his new outfit, which was black, double-breasted, twin-tailed, had a hood and long sleeves. The collar was high and extended near his chin to cover his neck. It had a zipper that went from top to bottom, but Naruto left it unzipped from his waist down to give himself more room to move. The cloak also had silver drawstrings with silver beads hanging from the ends, as well as a chain ornament with 4-cylinder shaped silver beads that goes around the collarbone. White Zetsu let out a wind. He has always liked black. I think those silver decorations are your unique seals for your cloak, Zetsu said as he looked at Naruto's cloak again. He had style and class, Zetsu said. Naruto looked at the chain around his collarbone and said, "That's right, Zetsu. This seal suppresses my chakra voluntarily, making me appear as if I was a civilian. Only the Byakugan would be able to measure the chakra, and even then they can only get so much from their eyes." After that, he pointed to the drawstring on the right hand. This seal is equipped with a barrier. Should any jutsu or weapon be aimed for the kill, a barrier would appear and prevent the attack from killing me. However, this seal is usable once per day, so I still have to avoid taking any fatal shots from kunai. Then he pointed to the drawstring on the left side. This seal frees me from all movement impairing restriction and can also nullify a person's senses by producing an invisible shockwave, therefore making them fall unconscious, and also has the same time limit as the barrier. Zetsu agreed that Naruto's seals were clever. Both were strong and useful for many shinobi who wanted to use them. As soon as Konan walked in, she saw Zetsu and Ryu talking. She also looked at Ryu's new clothes and thought, that guy has style. Konan asked with her eyes wide open, "Are you going somewhere?" "I have some errands to run. I will be leaving for a few hours, and until I return you are to stay here and carry out any other missions the Mizukage has for us," gave Rai a strong order. Kiana raised a blue eyebrow in interest. "Can't you just use whatever you used to get to the Land of Lightning and stay at the Land of Water at the same time?" said Konan. She was still interested in what had happened, and she knew they weren't shadow clones because they would be too far away from the real one. "I need to do this myself, and it might be fun for me," Ryu said with a dark grin that was hard to see. As Zetsu turned into dirt, Ryu and Konan left their hotel room and crossed the street. While Naruto and Konan were out on the street, Konan was looking at the back of Naruto's new cloak. Naruto had not yet moved. The person who held the Sharingan said what was on his mind. "I know you don't fully trust me. I can feel your doubt like a light," Naruto told Konan, which caught Konan off guard. "Although you trust me more than Obito, the fake me, you can doubt me. I don't care, but if you want to help me kill Obito, you have to trust me." She just looked at Ryu's back as he walked away from her. Konan didn't say anything. There was only his nose, mouth, and chin that could be seen when Ryu pulled up the hood of his cloak. As he disappeared in a cloud of bats, Ryu said, "Good day, Konan." There were flying mammals all around Konan, and she noticed that instead of the deep black eyes that bats are known to have, each one had a pair of blood red Sharingan. As Konan watched the bats fly off to an unknown place in the west, the high pitched squeaks and flapping of their wings could be heard all around her. In the middle of a forest, Itachi Uchiha was relaxing. His mind was on the newest member of the Akatsuki, even though it looked like he was meditating. Yokaze Ryu. It was hard for the former Uchiha heir to pin down. There was something that he felt strange, like he knew Ryu Yokaze but didn't know him at the same time. However, what scared Itachi was that Ryu seemed emotionless, and the way he threatened Hidan, Itachi knew that was just fake anger. Ryu said that to show how angry he really was. Also, Ryu had the Sharingan. But the Uchiha bodies that were left over after the killings were set on fire so that no one could get the Sharingan. Itachi then had a thought. He thought Naruto was still alive for a long time, but as the years went by, his belief grew weaker. But it was Naruto Riv. It's possible that the Yellow Flash's legacy was still alive and well among the people who tried to kill him in the first place. But the question of how Naruto stayed alive and how he got so strong remained. Itachi thought that as an S-ranked criminal, Naruto had a lot of power. Could it have been the man in the mask who brought Naruto back and trained him? Could it have been that man in the mask who helped Naruto kill the Uchiha? Kisame, Itachi's partner, came over to talk to him. They both went on their way to their next mission, and Itachi stopped thinking about the man in the mask and Ryu. Being ready for what her teacher, the Hokage Tsunade Senju, was going to say, Sakura Haruno was sitting in her room. The only thing the pink-haired girl knew about the message was that Tsunade had called the whole village and it was important. But deep down, Sakura knew it had something to do with Naruto. She had no idea what it was, but she had a feeling it had something to do with Naruto. And the pain of losing him was still strong in her even after 2 years. She would sometimes wake up chanting his name, but the only time she could see him was in her dreams. She wished those dreams were real because of what she did in them. She would feel cold every time she woke up from the dream, though. Sakura saw that she had changed a lot when she got out of bed and looked at herself in the mirror. The obsessed and crazy girl was gone, and in her place was a woman who was trustworthy, determined, and a little stubborn. She thought she was a strong kunoichi, and it turned out she was naturally good at medical ninjutsu. It was like she was born to do it. The window in her room led to her balcony, and she went to the Hokage Tower, where Tsunade was going to tell everyone the news. It seemed like Konoha was sad, like all the people from the village had left the world with Naruto. People in the village were gathering in front of the Hokage Tower. The clouds were getting darker, and there were a few drops of rain. A cloud of bats flying around in the gray sky was not seen by anyone in the village. The flying mice just circled an electrical pole like vultures who had found a dead body. Then 2 of the bats began to attack each other like kamikaze planes. And as more bats crashed into each other, a shape began to form from their bodies. And the figure came out of the black fog and landed gracefully on the power pole. The person was dressed in a black cloak and black gloves. His hood was up, covering most of his face except for his nose, mouth, and chin. Naruto looked around the village with blood red eyes and said, "This place hasn't changed at all. It's still disgusting as ever. I never thought I'd come back here, but I really want to see how the villagers react. I want to know if they hate me even more or if they will kiss my grave out of gratitude, greed, or maybe even pity." The wind blew his coat hard, and some of his hair came loose. He looked through the crowd of people to see if he could recognize anyone. But seeing how people reacted wasn't the only reason he was here. He planned to do something that he didn't have time for the last time he came. The detection barrier around the village thought he was a normal person because of his new cloak that was enhanced by funjutsu. Some people he knew were easy for him to spot. Like the 2 idiots who were wearing green jumpsuits and have terrible haircuts. A boy who looked wild and had red fang tattoos on his cheeks and a big white dog on his chest. He remembered that this person wasn't very smart. A fat boy with swirls on his cheeks and long brown hair. Because he was so sensitive, he lost control of his feelings when his weight made him mad. A woman with dark hair and red eyes who was very good at genjutsu. He couldn't remember much about her besides the fact that she called him weak. He could remember that the girl had dark blue hair, white eyes, and a white jacket. She didn't have any real courage or special skills. And a lot of others. He meant for them to suffer and see how weak they were in comparison to him. Those who looked down on him will be sorry. But there was one person who stopped him in his tracks. The girl had pink hair and wore a red vest. She had a headband on to keep her hair in place. He remembered something about this girl that made him feel like he liked her, but all he could remember was how she looked down on him and thought she was better than him. He sat down on the power pole with his elbow on his cheek, holding his head up with his fist, and one leg up against his chest. His other leg rested on his knee. Naruto said in a whisper, "Show me if the will of fire still lives." Down in the crowds, Sakura heard what sounded like a ghostly whisper among the people's muttering and arguing. She remembered every word very well. He said, "Show me if the will of fire still lives." She turned her head several times to see where the whisper was coming from but couldn't find it. The voice sounded both familiar and strange at the same time. She could feel the rain on her face. Luckily it wasn't pouring down rain, so most people wouldn't mind. But she also said that the weather was like when he died. Could Naruto have changed the weather because he was so powerful in the village? Sakura turned her attention back to the Hokage Tower and didn't think anything of it. Now was the important part. Tsunade climbed to the top of the tower and looked down at all the people who had come to hear the news. It felt like she was guilty because her heart was swollen. She got up the courage to face the crowds, though. Naruto watched Tsunade from where he was and said, "Here it comes." "People of Konohagakure." Tsunade yelled, making everyone quiet. Everyone looked at her. "Today as your Hokage I will announce something that has been known only to the elders of the Leaf for 15 years. Everyone in the hidden village could hear her loud voice. Naruto had to tell her how great she was. She was a real, capable leader. This news goes back to the Kyuubi attack where the Yondaime Hokage sacrificed himself to kill the beast. Tsunade went on. But this is false, the Yondaime couldn't kill the beast, no one can kill a Biju, so the Yondaime sealed the malevolent fox spirit into the body of a baby who was born barely a few hours ago. Many people in the crowd began to whisper to each other. When Naruto saw the Godem, he looked down with a sneer and said, "Baby. More like sacrifice." This child's name was Naruto Uzumaki. A lot of Naruto's classmates gasped when they realized that one of them was the jailer of the fox that almost destroyed their village. A lot of young people gasped, but then they thought about how Naruto Uzumaki, who was barely a baby, had saved them. Older people scowled, and many of them began chanting that the demon should die. "I find it funny that kids are smarter than adults who have twice as much life experience," Naruto said, amused by the kids' reactions. "If anything, older people should be wiser than younger people." Naruto kept his empty eyes on the Hokage and listened to everything that was being said by the people. "What most people don't know, though, is that our Yondaime died leaving a legacy for all of you," Tsunade said as she went on with her speech. "He died leaving the world his greatest treasure. His son, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze." Even more gasps could be heard as people in the crowd quickly changed their minds about him. Naruto laughed. It didn't take long for people to realize what was going on. It was also easy to see that he was the son of the Yondaime. Jinchuriki are usually chosen from outside the Kage's family so that the host doesn't have to leave the village, which was very strange how much they looked alike. The Yondaime was far too noble a person to ask someone else's child to be the jailer, so he used his own blood, his kin, someone worth more to him than Konoha itself. Tsunade went on. And there was no sound in the leaf at that moment. Everyone felt guilty, let down, and sad, but Sakura's sadness made everyone else's sadness seem worse. There were tears running down her emerald eyes, and her head was bowed. She was crying because she had caused Naruto's pain. Although some people in the crowd were yelling that their leader was lying and that the demon could not be the Yondaime's child. Naruto could feel their anger even when he wasn't in the village. His last wish, the Yondaime's last wish, was that his son would be treated as a hero for housing the beast within his own body, protecting you and your families with every breath he took. But you let your hatred blind you to the truth. Tsunade cried out. Everyone was confused, and some were crying out loud. They saw the resemblance, but they wouldn't see it. Others were yelling in shock because they didn't believe a demon could be born from a cage. While he watched, Naruto thought to himself, does the cup become water when you pour water into it? No, it's just a cup with water in it. A lot of them were chanting about how they had let down the Yondaime and the Sandaime. We failed the Yondaime. We're monsters. How could we do this, to a child no less? If only I can take back what I did. There were many sentences that quickly spread through the village like fire. Naruto laughed out loud, which made him angry and also funny. He was sickened by the fact that they thought they could take back what they did to him and all the times they hit him and threw rocks at him. He wanted to kill himself to escape the daily hate and anger that was directed at him, and found it funny that civilians were acting the way they were. You lived in fear of something that shouldn't be feared. Every one of you contributed to his pain and anguish, and you only strengthened his sorrow. He wanted to prove to every one of you that he was more than what you claimed he was. You denied him everything he needed for your petty revenge, and I was going to choose him to be Hokage after me, for he had shown everything a Hokage must be, and because he had something that all of you had forsaken. The will of fire. Tsunade cried out. This is what the legendary Shodan Hokage stood for. An ideal that Naruto lived by every day. As Tsunade yelled, tears were running down her face. But you betrayed my grandfather and every other Hokage before me. And now that good-hearted boy is dead, and you praise and worship his killer, someone who left the village for power and ran to someone worse than the Kyuubi. It's funny how they celebrate the death of a child as if a miracle had happened. Snorted Naruto. He never asked to be a Jinchuriki, he never asked to be despised as if he was dirt, no worse than dirt, as if he was nothing. He tried to change your views of him. He wanted all of you to look at him as if he mattered to the village. He wanted to be your leader, your next Hokage, because he loved this village more than anything. He would have sacrificed everything for you. The amount of courage he'd shown outweighed all the value of gold in this world. He was the embodiment of the will of fire, its physical manifestation. Continued Tsunade, and the villagers were weeping because all the things the Godem had said were true. If you looked closely, you could see Iruka forcing his way through while crying the whole time because he had also caused some of Naruto's pain. Naruto's eyes were still looking without any emotion. while his features showed something else. He was so excited that his fist was clenched, and he had a sickly grin on his face. He wanted to kill everyone in this village so badly, but he had to do something else first and send a warning. Tsunade wiped her tears away and said, I think I've said enough. The villagers left with sad news and a feeling of depression in their hearts. Naruto, on the other hand, lost his smile and went back to being neutral. Then he felt something hit the hood of his cloak, and when he looked up, he saw rain on his face. He had to say nice things about the weather because it brought out the best in people. He got up, cleaned off his watch, and then vanished into a cloud of bats. The flying rodents went to a certain place because the blonde had to honor someone. No matter what, Naruto didn't know that there were white eyes watching him from below. A pair of the supposed Hyuga prodigy's eyes had caught a glimpse of someone in a black coat. He knew the person wasn't an Akatsuki because his cloak didn't have any black clouds on it, but something was off about that person. He was going to follow them and would have to tell a small group of people about this, with Shikamaru being at the top of the list. At the end of that rainy day, the Rookie 9 and Team Guy got together at a Korean barbecue restaurant. The reason they were getting together. Name: Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Akamaru agreed with Kiba's comment, I can't believe Naruto was the son of the Yondaime, the greatest hero of the village. Kiba looked up at the roof with his hands behind his head. At the table where they were sitting, there was food for everyone, but no one had touched or even looked at theirs. I know, it's so shocking. He was the very last one, so he couldn't have been the son of the Yondaime, Ino said to Sakura, who was sitting next to her with her head bowed in a sad face. Even though Naruto was thought to be the last one standing, Shikamaru always knew that the young Nara could see huge potential in him right away. Ino, the gossip queen, was the reason Neji was staring at him so intently, as if she wanted to say something but couldn't. Jiraiya. Sama was the dead last of his academy days and he's now the most powerful member amongst the Sannin. Shino said with a blank face. The bug user got a nod from Tenten, and Choji did the same. It's so youthful how people treated him, they had nothing to fear. The most youthful Yondaime was a master at sealing, so of course he knew how to contain the beast properly. Replied Lee. I was always sad, Naruto-kun. It's just that no one could see it, Hinata stuttered. But to go through that, with everyone in the village hating him for something he couldn't change, that takes a lot of strength, Choji, who was feeling a little down, said. Neji finished Choji's sentence with an amazing amount of courage and fortitude. The high god genius still had his white eyes on Shikamaru. 13 asked, could we have lasted in Naruto's shoes? This question made a lot of other people scratch their heads. It's too late now, Naruto's dead, there's no way to bring him back. He deserved better, we were his friends and comrades, and were we there for him when he needed us most? Because he was there for us. Said Shikamaru. Naruto would help any of them in an instant, so everyone nodded because they knew it was true. He never had what he have, a family, that's all he ever truly wanted, and we could have given him that, because we were his friends. Sakura was the only one who hadn't said anything yet. So she wouldn't cry in front of her friends, she held her arms tight. She could never say she understood how Naruto felt because she couldn't agree with him. Sakura got up from her seat and left the room so no one could see the tears streaming down her face. She loved the blonde knucklehead so much that hearing about his pain was like someone stabbing her in the heart. Everyone had to be away from her. A cloud of bats flew over the village, making loud noises with their squeaks and flaps. And the sound of their sharing cut through the air. The flying mammals saw something they knew, so they left the safety of the sky and dove-bombed each other over and over again as a black figure appeared on soft grass and his feet lightly touched the green floor. Naruto's bat cloud form broke apart, and he found himself in the Konoha cemetery. He had only come to honor one person, and no one else was important to him. He walked slowly among the tombstones, his body moving on its own. He didn't pay much attention to the tombs except for one in particular. The tails of his cloaks were scraping against the ground, and the heels of his shoes were making marks in the grass. The person in the cloak was still getting hit by the rain as he walked to a headstone he knew all too well. As he stood in front of Naruto Uzumaki's tombstone, he saw a scorned hero, who never became the fire's shadow, was carved into stone, and he read every word. Naruto just stared at the words. This was probably the work of a civilian, which made him feel bad even in death. The dead flower petals that were on the headstone were rubbed off. Naruto began to talk to his grave. It's been a long time. Old friend, I can't remember how many years it's been since I last felt your presence. You were just a mask that merged with its wearer. And you thought that your friend was redeemable. And your promise to that girl with pink hair was empty and hollow. Naruto scolded his psychological mask. He made that mask to hide his pain and trick the villagers, but after being with it for so long, it became a part of him and Naruto became the mask. But the mask was broken when he died. The real Naruto still called his old self a friend, though, because for a while he thought people would accept him and the mask would turn into a face. But it wasn't meant to be. The face and the mask were as different as the moon and the sun, but they still lived together. Now, without the sun's light, only the moon was left. The mask and the face, even though they were different people, were actually the same person. If you chipped away at the mask, the face would also feel the pain. Love is made of the negative emotions that shape us, same with hatred, but when we lose the positives and the negatives we are left as nothing but hollow beings, empty and devoid. Naruto said this. He was right. A person would be unable to have children without either. This is what happens when someone adheres to the will of fire, an ideal created by a fool and followed by idiots. After that, he felt someone's chakra coming in from behind him. He saw the same girl with pink hair as before, but he couldn't remember her name. He knew who she was, but not her name. There were only vague memories of her, but he knew she was always mad at him for some reason. She walked up to him and looked at the gravestone. She was carrying a bunch of absolutely wet white roses. Also, her hair was wet and her eyes were dark. After that, she looked at Naruto, who wasn't moving. Have you come to spit on the demon's grave? Sakura growled, letting out a small amount of a killing intent. Because she had heard that people would spit on Naruto's grave many times before. The Naruto said, no. I'm just here to honor a friend, Naruto said with a small bow on his head. Naruto then turned around and walked away. His black cloak draped behind him to keep him dry in the rain. Sakura was shocked when she heard this, and she watched as the figure walked away. Wait. She yelled, and the black figure stopped in his tracks. He turned his head a little, but didn't show his face. Who are you? Whenever Naruto thought about the question, he got this feeling. He wasn't sure who he was. Was he Naruto Uzumai, Ryu Yokaze, Madara Uchiha, or someone else? Did he even have a face? When he got older, the villagers looked at him like he was nothing. They didn't care if he was a kid or an adult. He really wasn't anyone. Just a shell with nothing inside. Naruto said, I'm what's left. Or maybe I'm all that ever was. He also thought what he said was true. It was like he was really a shell full of hate. Why are you here? She looked back at Naruto's grave and said in a soft voice, I come here so I won't forget. Forget about what? Him. Memories is all I have of him and I don't want to forget them. Talk to Sakura. Naruto turned his body so that he was almost facing her. Sakura was shocked when Naruto said, he will never be a memory. Only a reminder. Sakura said with a small smile, you're right. Just because you can't remember someone doesn't mean they're gone, as long as they remain with you in the place most important to a person, their heart. She didn't know that this wasn't what the man in the cloak meant. Naruto spoke again about his mask and said, you really want to see him again. I want to hold him, watch him, and kiss him more than anything else. Just being with him will be enough, Sakura said, letting her feelings out. Naruto paid close attention to the girl he knew but couldn't remember as she spoke. But yet, he made a promise to me. It was a lie. That promise he made to me. He made it to obscure his own pain and to illuminate my happiness, and yet I know now that I was never his friend. Sakura broke down. Naruto strained his eyes but still couldn't think of her. The main problem with the person who wielded the Sharingan was that his memories were all over the place. He would remember everything about his past life one second and nothing the next. He was very annoyed that he could and couldn't remember things. This girl was especially annoying because he knew her but couldn't remember her. Why was she so special? He could remember most of his friends, and if he couldn't remember something, it would only take a short time for that memory to come back and go away again. If you wanted to be his friend, you should have been his family. Always there for him when he needed them most, said Naruto. But still, even family can betray you. And like Naruto, when we die, we return to the nothingness. Sakura bit her lip in surprise. To look back at Naruto's grave and then back at the man, she turned her head but saw that he was gone. However, she could hear wings flapping and loud screeching. He and his father, Shikaku Nara, were playing shogi. For the lazy geniuses, it was a pretty even game. It wasn't working because they were both trying to guess the other's thoughts and moves before they made them. This made them think about what move they would make even more after the move, which made the game the longest in the history of shogi. Why can't the writer of this story just pick the winner of the game instead of going into all the details of this annoying game, you annoying writer? Shikamaru yelled at the writer. Who knows, maybe he's trying to make the story more interesting for his loyal readers by letting us know he exists. Plus, something bad is going to happen, and it might involve you and some of your friends, you troublesome author, Shikaku replied, since he hadn't done anything in 5 minutes even though it was his turn. Right then, Shikamaru, their mother, and Shikaku, their wife, came in and said that someone wanted to talk to Shikamaru. Shikamaru got up and walked to the door. While he was slumped over his door, Shikamaru said, "Troublesome writer, hope he doesn't kill me off." Neji, who was wet from rain that fell from the clouds, was standing in front of him. Neji said in a serious tone, "We need to talk, Shikamaru." "Is the author going to kill you?" Shikamaru asked without thinking. As Neji asked with one eye narrowed and the other raised, "What?" "What did the Nara heir say?" "Nothing. Someone is in the village. I think he snuck in. He might be an enemy ninja from a rival village," Neji whispered, sounding a little serious. It had only been 2 months since Ryu Yokaze sneaked in and killed all those Anbu and almost killed Kakashi. Sensei, Kurenai. Sensei, and her team, so it's possible that someone else snuck in. But I heard from my dad that Ryu Yokaze has joined the Akatsuki, so you may be right, Neji. Neji was surprised by how many words the Nara spoke, since he rarely spoke at all. "We need to be careful, if the village found out we have been infiltrated again it could cause a panic and we should take some pressure of Hokage. Sama's back by dealing with this ourselves." Neji agreed with this. "We need a capable team to confront this person, also he may not be alone, he could have some allies with him. We need people trust, preferably people we have worked with and are on friendly terms, that way we would be familiar with their fighting styles," Neji told us. Shikamaru agreed and nodded. Neji's last words before he left to get a team together were, "I'll get the others." He thought of so many things. He remembered everything about this spot. He remembered how he cried because the villagers didn't care about him and how he cursed them in anger over why they hated him. He also remembered how he dreamed of committing suicide when he was sad and how he used to hide when he was scared and how he wanted to kill everyone when he was angry. As it poured down rain in the village of Konoha, Naruto stood outside his apartment building. His place to live. When he was kicked out of the orphanage, Sarutobi gave it to him as a gift. He didn't remember why when he was younger, but he did when he was older. His apartment wasn't a fancy hotel or a run-down motel. It was just right. It wasn't too small or too big. It was just right. However, there were signs of wear and tear from age, like cracks in the walls, plumbing leaks, and wood chips from the floor. There was nothing dirty or clean about it. He remembered all the ramen he used to eat and the cups he dropped on the floor. There were bugs and stinky smells coming from his house, but every home had at least one pest. He would look through the whole house for the cockroaches that lived in his clothes. He would look for the bugs for hours at a time and then stomp on them with his boot. In general, it felt like home. But now that he saw his apartment, he couldn't remember the last time it looked like it did now. The hinges on the door to his house were all broken off except for one, which was barely holding the wooden rectangle in place. One touch and the door would fall. There was graffiti on the walls that led to his apartment. "Devil, go to hell. Daughter of a whore. You ought to have died the day you were born. You fox brat should have killed yourself. We were saved by Uchiha Sama." People had written those words on the walls. Naruto also couldn't pick up any chakra signatures coming from the building. It seemed like the people who lived there had just packed up and left. They may have left after they died so that the other people wouldn't come into contact with the demon's nest. Naruto walked up to the door and stepped back a little. When he got to the other side, he grabbed the sides of his door and gently slammed it against the wall, breaking the hinge. He then put the door back where it should have been. He saw how bad his apartment was when he turned around. The floors were burned, the wood was broken, and there were holes all over the ground. Everything he owned was taken away. His fridge was lying on the floor, and big pieces were missing from it. His bed was badly burned, and you could see the mattress springs. There was even more writing on the walls, saying things that hurt even more. There were broken pieces of glass all over the wreckage, and the windows had cracks and breaks in them as well as jagged edges that were as sharp as blades. When Naruto stepped forward, he heard something crack under his foot. He saw. When he looked down, it's something. He got on his knees and brushed off some broken wood. He then saw a picture. The frame and glass were both broken. But there was something odd about this picture. There were 3 people in the picture. A man with silver hair and a mask. A boy with dark eyes and hair. And a blonde with blue eyes and a girl with pink hair who looked excited about. It's something. A man in a mask patted the heads of 2 of his students, both boys, and seemed to smile with one eye. The boy with dark hair was sad and looked away from the camera, like he had something more important to do than be there. The boy with blonde hair had his arms crossed and was scowling at the boy with dark hair, showing that he was angry and jealous. He still couldn't figure out why the girl was so happy. He looked at her and knew that she wouldn't last long in the world of shinobi. She looked like she was on a diet because her muscles weren't developed and her stamina was almost non-existent. He could also tell she wasn't from a clan or a well-known shinobi family, so her chakra levels would be just a little above civilian. All in all, she wouldn't last 10 seconds in the world by herself. He did notice, though, that this was the same girl who had been at his grave before. He remembered all of his classmates, teachers, and friends, but not this girl. Why couldn't he remember her? Since his mask knew her, he must have met her or at least heard of her. But he couldn't remember anything else besides the fact that she was mad at him and punched him in the jaw for no clear reason. Naruto could feel this longing in his heart as he looked at the picture. Did he think that he was sad just thinking about it, or did it make him sad? He had no idea what to do. The black, cloaked blonde sat down on his broken down bed and looked at the picture over and over again. He really only cared about this one thing from his mosque's life. Wait. There was something else. He turned around and saw an old ramen poster on the wall above his bed. It was the only thing on the wall that was still attached. He threw the picture where it hit the ground, making the sound of glass breaking and paper tearing. It missed his attention that a picture had come apart on its own. The picture had been split up so that the young blonde was separated from the other 3. The other picture stayed the same, but without the little blonde boy. Naruto turned his attention to the ramen poster and tore it off the wall by grabbing a corner of the paper. The building had a hole cut in the wall, and there was a small box behind the poster. The box was safe from outside forces because it had a small combination lock. Naruto played with the lock instead of slamming his fist through it. Why? He himself didn't know. As Naruto thought about the lock's combination, he said, 7, 28, 13, 4, 32, 9. He took the lock off when he heard it click. Where he found a lot of pictures. One picture at a time, he looked through them. Most of the pictures were of him wearing his mask with family, friends, and teachers. The sweet times he shared with Tsunade and Jiraiya, some of his friends, Sarutobi, his fake grandfather, Iruka, and Konohamaru would have made his old self smile. He wasn't happy in any of the pictures. He was just blank. He didn't understand any of these pictures. After that, he saw a picture that made him stop. It was him, or rather his mask, and the girl with pink hair standing behind a cherry blossom tree. He had no idea why this picture had caught his attention. A lot had happened between his training and his fame, but he didn't know much about it. He chose not to think about it right now, but the girl. It wasn't important. He threw the pictures to the ground and left his old apartment for good. He was angry with someone and wanted to get even. Marichio Maeda was what the word sloth meant, as in lazy. On his finger were jewels from all over the world of shinobi. He wore fancy kimonos made from the best silk Konoha had to offer, and his house was filled with gold, emerald, sapphire, ruby, diamonds, pearls, and platinum. Marichio was vain, shy, snobbish, greedy, slow, and full of himself. He served on the Konoha Council and was a staunch supporter of Sasuke Uchiha. He even suggested that Sasuke have a statue built in his honor. The Hokage, Tsunade, thought Sasuke was a missing ninja. Marichio and his supporters tried many times to convince her, but she was just as stubborn as her teacher. Instead of killing that demon, she welcomed it and even thought of that boy as a son. Marichio thought the fox had tricked the Hokages because that's what a fox would do. He tried many times to kill that demon by starving it by offering shopkeepers money. The shopkeepers turned him down, telling him that killing the demon is its own reward, which made the fat man very happy. He had a good life though. The demon was dead, the village was safer than I'd ever seen it, and Ryu Yokazi was the only one who had caused trouble. Marichio was a civilian councilman and one of the richest men in the village. He also had a great family. His father and mother were still alive and well, and he has a brother and 2 sisters. The village was in the dark, and it was still raining. Marichio noticed that it had rained more since the demons died. But since he wasn't a shinobi, he wasn't aware of what was going on around him. Where he didn't see or notice a figure in a black cloak following him like a shadow and walking behind him so that their steps didn't make any noise. This ghost's eyes were red and had 3 tomos in each iris. The eyes were spinning quickly. When Marichio turned around, he heard a noise behind him but only saw a cat eating out of a trash can. Marichio snarled at the thing and started walking again toward his home. This figure in black was watching from the rooftops. His black cloak was flapping in the wind and getting wet from the rain, and his red, evil eyes were so filled with rage that it was impossible to breathe. The fat councilman sighed with happiness when he saw that his house wasn't too far away. He had no idea, though, that there was a tragedy going on inside. There is a dark hatred inside. When Marichio walked in, his mom was in the kitchen making dinner. Marichio called out, "Hey, San." His mom smiled at him when she turned around. She said, "Hello Marichio," in a soft voice. "What's for dinner?" Marichio asked with joy. His mother told him, "Ramen," which made Marichio look bad. San, you know I hate ramen. I should have closed down that stand of ramen cooks long ago for serving that demon. Swore at Marichio. It seems that he still thought that a boy, the son of a hero, was that demon, even after the big news. His mom told him, "I'm sorry honey, maybe you should have something else." The councilman didn't have time to answer her before his little sister Mareo Maeda ran up to him and gave him a big hug. Mareo was very happy and said, "San. You're home." Marichio got down on his knees to face his sister and asked, "Hello Mareo, were you good for San?" Mareo gave her brother a nod of the head as he gently patted her hair. Marichio's mother told him, "Also, a friend of yours came by earlier. He's waiting for you in your office." Marichio asked with a raised eyebrow, "Really? Who is it?" The head of the Maeda family replied, "He didn't say anything else besides that he's an old friend of yours." Marichio scratched his chin and said, "Well, I do like old friends." "Cool, see ya San." Marichio was excited about the chance to see an old friend again. He loved hanging out with his few friends, who were also on the council. When Omeda got to his office, he saw the person his mother had been talking about sitting in his chair. His hand was clenched into a fist and holding his head up idly. His leg was crossed over the other leg as if to show authority. The chair was made of leather and was sewn to perfection over the course of days. He was looking at a painting of Omeda being lifted to heaven by angels. The painting was clear.
The office was mostly dark, with only a small amount of light coming from the fireplace, which was built into the wall on the side away from the desk.
Marichio also saw that the man's hood was up, which covered all but his mouth, chin, and nose. Marichio nervously said, "Hello." He wasn't expecting this person to show up. His friends, always dressed in the nicest clothes, and the man in this suit looked like it could have been made by a peasant to Marichio and a cage to a shinobi. The unknown man who hadn't moved said, "Hello, Marichio. Interesting painting. It matches your gluttony perfectly." Marichio wasn't sure if someone should insult him or praise him. The tired fat man asked, "Who are you?" The person turned their head a little. The shadow got up from the chair and said, "Come on, don't you remember me? We've known each other for a long time." As the Maeda head slouched, he asked, "Do I know you?" The man in the black cloak was right about the councilman. He was really stupid. "Let me refresh your memory," the man said as he took off his hood.
To begin, Marekio noticed that the man was very handsome, even more handsome than he is.
His blonde hair was styled into a low ponytail that rested on his shoulder and went down between his shoulder blades. At least half of the ponytail was wrapped in bandages, and he had hair that went down to his chin and around the sides of his face. He had narrow, slightly round eyes, and his face was narrow with a clear jawline. But it was his eyes that seemed the most dangerous. Maruchio knew he had seen this person before, but he couldn't place the sighting. Maeda praised Yondaime Hokage, "You've come back from the dead." But it was clear that the dead eyes staring at him didn't bother him. The figure said, "Wrong, think again. Tougher this time." That's what Maruchio did. "Okay, blonde." Oh, that person was the only one with that shade of blonde. Maeda thought, I knew who that person was before it occurred to him. You're the demon." Maruchio yelled at Naruto as he tripped and fell on his behind. He then started running away as fast as he could. Even though the man wasn't very smart, Naruto started to clap at him because he had figured out something that no one else could. "Congratulations, you should be proud. One in the elemental nations has figured out my identity so quickly, however you were mistaken about one thing." Naruto spoke with a small grin. "I'm no demon. I'm a dragon." He pointed to the door that led out of the office and said, "Also, I left a gift for you downstairs." Maruchio then ran out of the room, leaving behind a strong smell that made Naruto mad. Did he have to piss himself? Maruchio ran as fast as his swollen, fat legs would allow him to go, and Naruto walked quickly behind him. Maruchio went into the kitchen and saw that the floor was covered in blood. On the floor were the bodies of his mother, brother, and oldest sister. They were cold and dead, and their skin was ashen and pale. Their eyes were white and cloudy. Maruchio asked, "How? That can't be true. I just talked to them a few minutes ago." His mind was trying to make sense of everything it was taking in. The wonders of Genjutsu, of course you would know nothing about it since you being a fool. Naruto spoke aloofly. As he turned around, Naruto stood behind him and smiled a little. Maruchio quickly went into a different room, leaving Naruto in the big kitchen by himself. When the councilman came out, he was carrying a spiked ball that was bigger than his head and looked like it would be hard to lift. Naruto saw Maruchio's tears, which did have a hint of anger in them but were mostly tears of sadness. "I will use my family's legendary weapon, the invincible flail that's been passed down from generation to generation. With this ball I'm basically invincible," roared Omeda. "Let's crush the demon, Jijetsubori." Maruchio charged at Naruto, but the human hippopotamus didn't scare him. But Maruchio tripped and hit his face on the spike ball, breaking his nose and knocking out a few teeth. "Ah, you're stronger than I anticipated if you were able to make me trip over with your mind," said Maruchio. But Naruto sighed. This man was so clumsy that he kept tripping over himself. "Maybe I should cut out your tongue instead of your heart, your ramblings are giving me a headache," said Naruto. The blonde walked up to the big ball, grabbed it with one hand, and threw it like it was a beach ball. The ball easily went through the walls of the mansion. Naruto spoke as he gathered chakra in his left eye. "Maybe killing all your family wasn't enough. Maybe this will make you feel pain." Tsukuyomi. Meichio was taken to a world that was red with black clouds. Naruto then showed up. Naruto said, "Starting now, I will make you watch as I kill your family over and over again for 5 days." At that moment, a katana appeared in his hand, and Maruchio's family also appeared. She cut the sister of Maruchio in half. Maruchio yelled, "No!" as he saw his family being killed in front of him. They were gone like ghosts, and Naruto stood in front of them with the same katana. Naruto asked, "What's wrong? We only have 4 days, 23 hours and 59 minutes left." He said this without any emotion. He kept seeing Maruchio's family as he watched Naruto kill the people closest to him. Marchio kept seeing his family getting killed in horrible, different ways every time they showed up. He screamed and begged Naruto to stop, but the blonde wouldn't listen. He kept killing his family over and over again. Maruchio woke up in the real world all of a sudden and fell to the ground screaming and crying. He had saliva running from his mouth and a little foam on the corners of his lips. He was still able to stay conscious, which was pretty cool for someone who wasn't a shinobi. "I was certain that would cause you to go brain dead, but it seems your stupidity saved you by creating a psychological wall while within Tsukuyomi," Naruto said that. Well, I guess that I just have to break down that wall. When Marichio looked up, he saw someone floating next to Naruto. The person was wrapped in clear ribbons, which he pulled off to reveal his little sister Mareo. Marichio gasped, Mareo. Physically, you two don't look anything alike, but I can tell her chakra signature is 67% identical to yours. She must be related to you. I wonder what you would do if I did this, Naruto said as he took the Tanbogiri. No. Tsurugi off of his right wrist. He brought the sword up just a few inches from her neck and didn't move at all except his arm. Naruto knew that the blade could cut you even if it didn't touch you. He slowly brought it up to her neck. Mareo gasped and said, Marichio. From Mareo's neck, a long, shaped trail of blood began to flow. It got worse as the blade got closer. The cut in her neck kept getting bigger and going all the way through to about halfway down. Scared, Marichio watched as the dragon killed his sister slowly right in front of his eyes. As his sister's head hit the ground and her body flopped to the floor like a fish, the fat man felt like time stopped. Naruto grabbed the head and threw it at Marichio, who swayed in shock when she saw her sister's head. To get the Maeda's attention, Naruto said, "Trust me, your family is not the first council family I've killed this night. The Itoribashi family and the Iba family have all met the same end." Marichio kept staring at his sister's head while he said, "Why? You're killing the councilors and their families." "Why yes, the ones who wronged me, the ones who denied me a right to live, the 3 other councilors that could tolerate my presence in the village will be spared. At least they never did anything to me." Naruto went on. In his flashbacks, Marichio saw Naruto as a child announcing that he would be Hokage. He also remembered how many times he had been called to the council chambers without the Hokage being there. At the time, the boy wasn't smart enough. He didn't understand why or who had called him. And every time, Omeda and his followers would try to weaken the Hokage's power. The village elders were a pain, but they kept Naruto alive because they knew how valuable he was. Danzo in particular would watch over the boy with his root soldiers to make sure he wouldn't die. Of course, Maeda did what anyone like him would do, he ran away from Naruto. As Naruto left the mansion on foot, his mental illness was getting worse, and he could no longer think straight. He tried to run away. He was still crying. He tripped again, and this time his face hit the concrete and broke even more of his nose. Naruto was holding a metal dart with a thin string connecting the 2 ends in his left hand. His right knee hurt very badly. As Naruto walked up to him slowly. "The Tanbogiri is still in your hands." Naruto began to pull on the thin string, which brought Marichio closer to him. While the man was scratching at the ground so hard that the tips of his fingernails started to bleed. Naruto finally caught up to the man, who hadn't been running for very long. He put the man on his back with 1 foot and held the Tanbogiri in a reverse sword grip. He held the katana in both hands and aimed it at Omeda, who was still crying. He was ready to stab her in the head. The pig that was about to be killed begged, "Please spare me." However, Naruto didn't listen and instead pushed the Tanbogiri straight through the man's mouth, killing him and leaving blood and rainwater all around him. Naruto said, "My vengeance was fun while it lasted." He looked down at the sword and put the katana into his wrist seals. He put up his hood to cover his eyes and went on his way. The blonde spy was strutting down the streets of the village where he used to live. He looked into every crack and building. The muddy water made a loud squelching sound every time his feet hit the ground. Then he saw a building he knew well, one where he had found safety and comfort before. It was open at Ichiraku Ramen. He did eat some ramen while he was training, but he never had a whole bowl of his old favorite food. His stomach started to grumble, which made him decide what to do. He sighed, walked to the ramen shop, and sat down where he always did. Whenever he was sad, happy, or angry, he would go to the store and get a bowl of ramen to calm down. He could vaguely remember all of those times. He saw the young ramen cooks hard at work making noodles and soup. They would see him in the end, so there was no point in calling out. Ayame saw a man in black sitting on one of their stools when she turned around. The cook said, "Hello, welcome to Ichiraku Ramen." "Hello, may I have some miso ramen with servings of pork?" "Please," said Naruto. Ayame gave him a nod and told her dad what to do. Tucci looked at the man too. As Tucci looked out the window of his shop, he said, "What awful weather we're having." Naruto replied, "I like the rain. It makes me feel calm and happy." He began, "It's been like this ever since." But stopped. He didn't want to remember that sad time. "Okay, that's okay. So why are you here, you stranger?" Tucci asked, his frown turning into a smile. Naruto replied, "Meeting with old friends." Tucci gave a nod and thought it was personal, so he chose not to press the matter. Ayame put a bowl of hot ramen in front of Naruto and said, "Order up." He broke the chopsticks and helped himself to the noodles. It looked like the ramen hadn't changed at all. It was still delicious. He only wished he had the recipe to make some for himself. He paid for his food and was about to leave the store when he saw something interesting. There was a menu on the inside wall of the store, and Naruto Ramen was written up big. Interested, he raised an eyebrow. It was Tucci and Ayame who saw Naruto staring at their special, high-end ramen. They made that ramen recipe to honor Naruto and what he did for the village, but it wasn't very popular, probably because most people didn't like Naruto. While he was leaving, Naruto kept looking at the menu and said, "Thank you," to the ramen cooks. People in the village could hear pittas tattering and the sound of shoes squelching on wet ground. He was leaving because he was sick of this place, but the girl with the pink hair was still annoying. He could remember her and forget about her at the same time. What was unique about her? Even though Naruto didn't know they were following him, he could feel their fear and nervousness. They had been following him for an hour. He stopped in his tracks when he saw Neji Hyuga. The Hyuga clan's star athlete was blocking his way on the main road that led out of the village. During the memory of beating the Hyuga, he used taijutsu and one ninjutsu to do it. He thought to himself how sad it was that a member of the powerful Hyuga clan could be defeated by a single jutsu. Neji yelled, "Stop!" But Naruto didn't say anything. After that, everyone else came out from hiding and stood next to Neji. These people are Shino Aburame, Shikamaru Nara, Rock Lee, Kiba Inuzuka, Akamaru, Kiba's partner, and Tenten. All of them were facing Naruto and looked ready to fight. "He's the only one here, he doesn't have any friends lurking around," said Tenten. Naruto thought Kiba was cocky when he said, "Cool. Then this guy should be easy since he's by himself. Don't underestimate him, Kiba." "Why?" "Because we don't know what his skills are, so you should overestimate him," Shino told Kiba in a low voice. Shikamaru said in a low voice that could be heard, "What's your name?" "You're annoying. My name is of no importance, you're blocking my path and I will like to leave the village." Naruto said this. He didn't want to deal with bugs right now, but he could stay for a while. Tenten pulled out a kunai and threw it at Naruto's head. The Sharingan caught it with his index finger, which went through the blade's ring. No way, Tenten thought. He asked who among the six, not Akamaru, had the best aim and path. Naruto returned the kunai by throwing it at Tenten's eye with one finger. Tenten was able to avoid the blow, but one of her buns was cut. "It seems that I won't be able to leave as I planned. But I guess I can dance with you for a while," Naruto told me. Besides, this is the perfect opportunity to try out something new. Each of the 6 groups got ready for battle. Naruto stretched out his arms and opened the seals on 2 metal sai that were exactly the same. The sai's shaft and prongs were made of a metal that could conduct chakra. The grip was black with gold bands going around it, and yellow cloth grew out of the hilt to top it off. "Guys," Tenten told them, "sais are mostly used for hitting an opponent with quick, powerful thrusts, as well as slashing like a sword and stabbing like a knife. This is because ninjas don't usually use sais. Considering the thunder and rain in the sky and the fact that their clothes are wet, lightning release will work best here," Naruto thought as he took in his surroundings. Water moves electricity, so any method of releasing lightning would be stronger since it was natural. He also wanted to have fun, so he wasn't going to fight them. Then, he sent lightning chakra through his sai, making them sharper and removing the need to hit an opponent. It also numbed them, which was helpful since most of the fighters were close, except for Shikamaru and Shino. "Okay, don't worry about it," Kiba said as he got ready to fight. Neji used his Byakugan to look at his opponent's chakra. It was about mid-cage level, and the signature was both familiar and unfamiliar. It was like Neji had seen this chakra before, but it was so different that he couldn't place it. The man in the cloak did, however, have more than just cage. Level reserves. But first, Naruto said as he sealed his left sai and put his hands together in a single seal. They saw seal arrays on 4 buildings in an area that was about 1.5 square miles in size. Guys, that's a silencing seal. Anything trapped within the arrays goes silent except for the inside. No one can hear us while we're in here. Tenten yelled to her friends, who frowned at the news. They never saw the man in the cloak coming. The roar of Kiba and Akamaru as they charged Naruto said, "Let's get going." Gatsuga. Kiba yelled as he and his ninken sped toward Naruto. Naruto dove backwards to avoid the fang and claw cyclone. Kiba clenched his teeth and glared at the guy. That was one of his fast moves, and the guy easily avoided it. In order to defend himself, Naruto held his sai with the handles facing away and the shafts facing him. When Neji and Lee charged forward, they planned to use the years of experience they had working together. Neji tried to hit Naruto in the arm with a juken, but Naruto was quick enough to deflect it with a few simple sai moves and used his other weapon to block Lee's kick to the head. Naruto sped by Neji and tried to cut his arm with his lightning sais as he went for a double juken tap to the chest. But Shikamaru's Kagemon no Jutsu got in the way and pushed him back. Naruto knew that Shikamaru could kill you if you got caught in his shadow, and he knew that the rest of them would find him easy prey if that happened. He did remember, though, that Nara techniques need light, and there wasn't much of it here besides the dimly lit street lamps. Naruto looked at what looked like little lights floating around with his Sharingan. The more Naruto looked, the more he saw that they were fireflies. There were a lot of them because Shikamaru would need more than one bug, and Shino is an expert on bugs. Naruto went after Shikamaru and Shino first because he thought they were the most dangerous of all of them. The blonde in the cloak ran past Neji and Lee, strafed away from Kiba, and aimed one of his sai at Shikamaru, who was lying on the ground having his shadow chase after Naruto. When Naruto looked to his left, he saw a small flash and blocked it with his lightning sai. He then saw Tenten throwing kunai and shuriken at him. Naruto saw that the projectiles were moving slowly, which made it easy for him to block and dodge them. Konoha Senpu yelled in an annoying voice and he saw Lee flying towards him aiming a kick at his temple, but Naruto blocked that with only little time as he spun around to Lee's backside and stabbed him in the back with his sai. Lee screamed in pain as the lightning made the spot where the lightning hit him numb. Naruto swept his foot under Lee, making the boy in green fall to the ground. Naruto was then ready to stab the boy in the neck. But after a short time, Naruto heard a voice. Neji yelled, "Hake Kosho!" and fired a vacuum shell at Naruto. Naruto was blasted a few feet away but wasn't badly hurt. He only used half of his chakra because he wasn't quick enough to kill Naruto and save Lee at the same time. The fact that Naruto didn't attack these guys made him smile. She jumped over to her teammate and gave him a quick check. "Lee, you okay?" "I'm fine, Tenten, he didn't pierce me that deeply but I am a bit numb." Lee spoke up. As Naruto warned, "I wouldn't take any breaks if I were you." Not a single one of them knew it was him. He sealed his sais and did some hand seals. Raiden. Raka Kaminari no Yari, lightning release, falling lightning spears. Naruto yelled as several lightning bolts came down from the sky and tried to hit the 6. Leaf Ninja. Neji tried his best to avoid the electrical spears that were falling from the sky as lightning struck. Tenten and Lee, on the other hand, were not so lucky. The lightning just hit them and numbed them, but because their bodies were wet, it traveled around them and shocked them. Shino was able to surround himself and Shikamaru with a shell of beetles, but the bugs were too hot to stand up to the lightning, so Shino had to keep adding more and more insects to the shell to make it smaller. While Kiba and his partner used their dog-like reflexes to avoid the spears. Finally, the lightning stopped, and Naruto went on the attack. He did this by slipping into an offensive stance and putting his sai in a position where it could stab and cut. If he threw one of his sai at Shino's bug shield, it would go through the shield and connect to a lightning rope. He would then use the lightning rope on his side to pull himself toward the bug bunker. He broke through the shield and was about to kill Shino and Shikamaru when he was hit by paper tags that went off. And a hole in the ground that the protective beetles were filling in. Naruto said, "Fu," as the paper tags blew up around him, setting him and the beetles on fire. The ground, which had been wet, quickly became wet again from the rain. Tenten, who was out of breath from dodging all the lightning, said, "Hey, got you." "Neji, is it over already?" Kiba yelled. Neji could see the man in the cloak lying face down on the ground until his Byakugan went off in a cloud of smoke. Shadow copy. I thought Neji. Everybody, don't let your guard down, he's STI. But he stopped in the middle of his sentence when something jumped out from the ground in front of Kiba and cut him across the chest and up and down on the left side of his chest. Before he cut through the bug shield, Naruto must have switched places with a shadow clone of himself. Kiba coughed up blood as he looked up at his attacker. He saw a man in black standing above him with his snapping sai. When Akamaru saw that his partner and friend Kiba was hurt and in danger, he jumped to help, but the man in the cloak kicked him away, badly. The cold Naruto looked at the downed Akamaru and said, "Dogs should stay in kennels." The kick had made Akamaru cry out in pain. Shikamaru quickly used the little light he had to practice his Kagemon no Jutsu to catch the man. He jumped away and threw some kunai at the Nara air when he saw Shikamaru's shadow coming toward him. Tenten threw some shuriken at them, though, and they missed. Kiba, whose body was numb, tried his best to crawl away. Luckily for him, Naruto got his size length wrong, or Kiba wouldn't have been able to get off the ground. His body was still numb, though. Tenten and Lee were fighting with weapons, and Naruto's electrical psi blocks broke any weapons Tenten used. It was getting annoying that Naruto had to change stances to deal with Lee's taijutsu style. And he had to jump away from Shino's swarm of chakra, draining beetles that were getting close to him. He was quite a ways away from the group, and chose to wait to see what they did next. Tenten got out a medium-sized scroll and got her next move ready. Naruto raised an eyebrow in interest when she showed him the scroll. After that, tens of thousands of kunai flew at him very quickly. Naruto sealed his left sai and opened a kunai, which he then threw at the coming attack. He knew he couldn't avoid it. It hit its target, which was another kunai. In that place, when one kunai hit another, it set off a chain reaction that went on and on, where the kunai were sent in a different direction than they were going before. Tenten thought to himself, no way, that move couldn't be dodged. It could only be blocked. But he used a single kunai to redirect one of my strongest techniques. Naruto did some hand seals and got ready for his next jutsu. Naruto yelled, "Futon, Tenrin, Wind Release, Orchid Sky," and held out his arms. A vortex of fierce wind as tall as him appeared and tore the ground apart. With lightning speed, Neji jumped in front of everyone and did one of his famous moves. "Hakesho Katen," yelled Neji, and a rotating shield of chakra appeared to protect his friends from the wind and spread it out. "Damn it, we're barely scratching him and he's making us look like kids. I thought our last plan would work with Tenten's explosive tags and Shino's bugs. Not only that, but this guy knows that the rain gives him an advantage," Shikamaru thought as he tried to come up with a way to beat this guy. The guy still hadn't shown most of his skills, though, so it would be hard to come up with a plan. Naruto looked at the effect of his jutsu and saw that it had literally torn the ground apart. He had made this jutsu himself and later taught it to Madara so that he could also use wind release. Then he heard a whistling sound to his right and looked up to see Lee flying at him with his leg outstretched. Lee yelled, "Dynamic entry," as his foot hit Naruto's arm, who tried to block it. The blonde had to agree that Lee was good at taijutsu because that kick had made his arm feel a little weak. But Lee wasn't done yet, so he kept attacking. "Konoha Daizenpu," yelled Lee as he smashed Naruto with his feet. Naruto wasn't able to defend himself properly because he was so close. Lee kept hitting Naruto hard with powerful kicks. With each kick, Naruto went up a little higher. Finally, Lee's foot hit Naruto on the head with a heel drop, sending Naruto into the ground where a dust cloud appeared. Lee's attacks didn't hurt Naruto, so his barrier seal didn't go off. "Alright, Lee. Kick his butt." Kiba cheered as the lightning left his body and Akamaru barked. "Yes. The power of youth flows through me." Lee yelled and shook his fists about. It was a good thing that no one outside the barrier could hear him. Naruto got up from the small crater his crash had made. He was mostly fine, but a little sore, and his cloak was a little dirty, but the rain would clean it up. Lee rushed at Naruto and cocked his fist back, ready to hit the blonde in the cloak. For the Uzumaki, that was what they wanted. Naruto held out his hand and said, "Raiden, Kaminari Hitsugi, lightning release, lightning coffin." A ball of lightning chakra engulfed Lee, who was then shocked by the electrical currents, and Naruto's hand was connected to a rope of lightning that linked him to the lightning coffin. Kiba and Akamaru moved quickly. Gatanga. Kiba yelled as he and Akamaru began to roll violently, cutting the ground beneath them in half. Naruto did some seals with one hand, shouting, Futon, Haringu. Fu, wind release, howling wind. Naruto sent streams of wind at Kiba and Akamaru. The streams would have hit them if Shino and his bugs hadn't stopped them. The bugs got stronger, and the wind was slowed down by their numbers before it hit Kiba, who was still running at Naruto. Naruto had no choice but to let Lee go and let Kiba and his dog sail right past him. While Lee was getting his cool back, Neji charged at Naruto. Kiba, Akamaru, and Shino joined the Byakugan wielder. They tried to overwhelm Naruto but failed. Kiba tried to claw at him but Naruto dodged, giving Neji a chance to seal his Tenketsu. Naruto changed his attacks and kept an eye on Shino's cloud of bugs that he was sending at him. Naruto was having fun, though, even though he tried to hide it. He really liked fighting with his old friends. Neji was getting even more angry at this man because he was easily beating them all at once, even though he had more people than them. Neji spoke as a green circle with 8 triangles appeared and said, "You're in my range." Neji used his strongest jutsu to attack Naruto and say, "Hake Rokuhui on show." As Neji sealed all of Naruto's Tenketsu, he said, 2 palms, 4 palms, 8 palms, 16 palms, 30. 2 palms, 60. 4 palms. Neji huffed and breathed a little, "It's over." When Naruto, however, blew up in a cloud of smoke, Tenten was standing there instead of him. He looked at his teammate with wide eyes as she stood in front of him and then fell to the ground. At the last second, Naruto switched places with Tenten before Neji used his jutsu, which kept his chakra from being sealed. Neji clenched his teeth at the sneaky move and saw Naruto and his lightning size off in the distance. Lee tried to keep his temper in check by saying, "How on? Youthful." Naruto said, "We are shinobi, and lying is our best weapon. There is no such thing as a fair fight, and there is no such thing as honor." This made his enemies frown. The others got ready for what was going to happen while Lee took Tenten to safety. Naruto did some hand seals. Naruto yelled, "Futon, Suiseki Ajiki no Jutsu, wind release, chasing prey technique." As he blew out a bunch of wind rabbits. The bunnies were yelling, "Please," as if they are going to hurt us. "Let's go, Akamaru." Kiba yelled, "Gatsuga." As he and Akamaru flew at the rabbits like drills and killed all of them. Shikamaru, who was the slowest, did his best to avoid the very fast wind rabbits, but his technique would have been more useful for protecting his friends. This cute but dangerous chakra creature tore through his flak jacket when he moved. Neji had a good way to defend himself with his Byakugan, and his Juken strikes were killing the wind rabbits. It was hard for Lee to avoid the rabbits because each one would come after him when he did. Soon, the rabbits ran off, leaving Shikamaru with some wounds but Kiba, Lee, and Neji unharmed. When Naruto saw that Shikamaru was hurt, he decided to kill him now. When Shikamaru saw Naruto running toward him, he coughed and said, "Damn it." Shikamaru got ready to use his Kagemon no Jutsu as a last resort. Though he tried quickly, Naruto was already on top of him and ready to stab him in the neck. Shikamaru's time slowed down as the Sai got closer to the kill. A rough voice said, "Oh no, you don't." And the ground began to shake. Naruto had to hold on to something to keep from falling over. When he looked to his right, he saw a real person with hair that was spiked and sharp. He asked himself, will the interferences ever end? He flipped backwards away from the human ball so that it wouldn't crush him. The rock that Shikamaru thought was Choji asked, "Are you okay, Shikamaru?" "Yeah, I'm fine, but be careful. This guy is really fast, and the weather is on his side because he attacks with lightning and wind," Shikamaru said as he held his hurt side. "Yeah, I saw the lightning while walking around the village, but I didn't hear any thunder, so I knew something was wrong," Choji said. Lee, Neji, Kiba, and Choji all agreed. He said with a grimace, "The best thing I can think of to help you guys in this situation is to attack him all at once, so he can't react to every attack." He looked at his side, which was bleeding badly. "Cool, help is already on the way, we just need to stall until they arrive," spoke Choji. Lee tried to boost everyone's confidence by saying, "Okay, let's go, my youthful friends." Naruto threw one of his sai at Lee. It hit him in the chest and went through his flak jacket pretty well. The size handle was attached to a lightning rope. Naruto used the lightning rope to pull himself toward Lee, and he got ready for a jutsu he made with a one-handed seal. Futon. Uzumaku Repuakama, billowing gale sides. Naruto yelled as he threw the wind scythe at Lee, cutting his shoulder so badly that it started to bleed heavily. Naruto hit Lee in the face with a flying double kick, which sent the boy in green flying away and hitting a building, making a big hole in the stone. When Naruto landed on the ground, he did some more hand seals. Naruto yelled, Raiden, Hekirikirion Shugekiha, lightning release, Thunder Lion shockwave. As he aimed his jutsu at Choji, a lightning vortex twice the size of his hand flew at the Akamichi, hitting him in the head. Choji couldn't move as quickly as Neji because he was so big. Unfortunately, Neji saved Choji's life when he did that annoying rotation move. Shino pointed his arm at Naruto, and butterflies that had been charged with chakra flew at him. Naruto made more seals on his hands. Kaden. Toripuru Kansume, fire release, triple flame claw. Naruto gathered fire chakra in the palm of his hand and drew an upside down red triangle out of it. The points of the triangle had claw-like ends, and Naruto fired it like a single beam of fire, using the claw tips to guide it. Within seconds, the bugs were burned to death by the flame's intense heat. The Konoha nin all moved out of the way of the fire beams so they wouldn't get burned. It would have been stronger if it wasn't for this rain. Even with all the wind blades my jutsu can make, the number of bugs would have been too much for it, and lightning jutsu would have been too precise, so fire jutsu was what was needed, Naruto said. As Choji charged at his enemy in the black cloak, he used a key move from his clan. When Choji said, Bubenbaika no jutsu, his left arm grew bigger and he was about to hit Naruto. But the Uzumaki was much faster than the Akamichi, so he dodged the attack and stabbed Choji in the armpit, hoping to hit a vein that led to his heart. It was a quick, easy, and bloody death. Unfortunately, Naruto missed and only stabbed Choji in the armpit. The lightning made Choji lose control of his arm, though. Neji rushed around Choji and got ready to use a strong Hyuga jutsu. Neji yelled, Hake Koikisho, and sent Naruto two strong waves of chakra that looked like empty shells. Who jumped away from Choji? The chakra waves kept going past him and tore the ground apart. Kibi yelled, Gatsuga, as he drilled his way through the air to Naruto and Akamaru. With the help of his Sharingan, Naruto was able to see exactly where Kiba's neck was as he closed his sai and tried to grab him and his dog by the throats. When the Uzumaki had both of them in his arms, he slammed the dog and the Inuzuka together, which made Akamaru yell and Kiba cry out in pain. They were hit hard against the ground by him. In that place, he stomped on Kiba's head and knocked him out. He then pushed Akamaru away from his best friend. Choji, angry as he gripped his useless left arm and watched Naruto easily defeat Kiba and Akamaru, yelled, It's like nothing works against this guy. Neji looked around and saw that Shikamaru and Lee need medical help. He also saw that Tenten and Choji would be fine soon. He, Shino, and Choji were the only ones left with his arm. Neji was running low on chakra and Shino was tired from fighting, so he just hoped that help would come quickly. But something was off about this guy. He had used a lot of moves that Neji thought were high level. So why did he not have enough chakra? Shino used what little energy and chakra he had left to get one of his jutsus ready. The normally quiet bug user yelled, Mushitatsumaki, as a tornado of bugs flew out of his sleeves and toward Naruto. Naruto thought, You're not the only one who can use ninjutsu based on animals. He put his left arm out and sealed his left side. As many bats flew out of Naruto's sleeve and attacked the insect tornado, he whispered, Hyakukomori Shoshitsu, vanishing 100 bats. Of course, bats are terrible at eating bugs, so the bugs were quickly killed by the bats, which shocked Shino. Neji replied, Bats. He thought it was strange because he had never heard of an animal contract for bats. The fight was getting old for Naruto, who said, I've grown tired of this skirmish. His favorite jutsu, which was a better version of the first one he ever made, was taught to him. Futon. Koryu Kisoku no Jutsu, Wind Release, Great Dragon Breath Jutsu. Naruto blew out the head of a huge Japanese dragon that was at least 4 times his own. It was made of eviscerating wind moving at a very high speed, and it was as tall and wide as the cloaked blonde. Neji used the last of his chakra to get another Kaden one that was 3 times stronger than the last one. When Choji and Shino were no longer together with Neji, they jumped away from each other. For the next part of the fight, Choji used his one good arm to get ready. He then used his chakra to make it bigger. The Wind Dragon head hit Neji's Kaden right on, and the Hyuga had a hard time trying to stop it. The jutsu was so strong that he couldn't keep up his Kaden for long. Shino was at the end of his abilities, but he could still feel the shadow behind him. When the Aburame turned around, he saw the eyes of a Sharingan staring right into his own. But he also got a good look at his enemy's face, and he smiled as he recognized it. There were some differences, but the likeness was clear. Shino felt time slow down as he thought things over. "Oh, it's you. You've grown strong and changed a lot, but there's something about you that makes me think you lost your emotions and are now just a hollow shell. Why didn't you go back to the village? Is the question I should be asking, but I can see why. In a way, you have gone back. I'm sorry, just so you know. Because you were never there. Just when you needed me the most." These were Shino's last words, Naruto. He cut him across the chest, stabbed him in the lung, cut his throat, turned him over, and then stabbed him in the neck, putting an end to Shino's life in the world. Naruto, on the other hand, didn't feel any guilt or regret. He thought, "There's nothing." He saw the body of the Aburame heir fall to the ground without moving. Neji, who was holding back the Wind Dragon to protect himself and Choji, saw everything that happened with his Byakugan. He was shocked, but he couldn't do anything about it. "Now on to the rest," Naruto said without showing any emotion. But something crossed his path and made him stop. This tag was on fire and was about to go off. There was a small explosion in a cloud of dust when the tag went off. Naruto with his size in a defensive stance was seen as a silhouette coming out of the cloud. He then looked up to see where the kunai was coming from. Ichiraku Uchiha. She was angry to the core. She wasn't able to get there in time to stop the murder of her student. But seeing it happen in such a horrible way. While Kurenai was threatening to kill Naruto, he said, "You'll pay for this." In his sleep, Madara showed more desire to kill. Kurenai pulled out a kunai and got ready to fight Naruto. Naruto joked, "Sorry, I don't feel like giving you money." He said this as he got his size ready. He stopped thinking for a moment because he could feel a lot of chakra signatures coming towards him. He had stayed in the village for too long and needed to leave. "It's been fun, but there's something else that needs my attention," Naruto said as he spread out like a cloud of bats. It screamed, "You're not getting away," as she chased the bats. The flying mice were too fast for her, though, and they got away. Kurenai stopped running, got down on her knees, and started crying because her student had died. Where Hinata and Asuma would later comfort her. That man would still pay, though. A big group of bats were flying toward the base that Naruto had named the mountain's graveyard. It had been months since he planted something there, so it should be done now. As usual, the mice and rats dove-bombed each other. Naruto gracefully landed from the cloud and walked to a certain room in the base. He noticed that there were now windows cut out of the rock. The base was finally being built by the White Zetsu, who had been working hard on it. The training ground wasn't finished yet, though, so it was still a pain. Naruto stopped moving when Zetsu appeared out of nowhere. White Zetsu asked happily, "Did you have fun in Konoha?" Naruto told Zetsu, "It's funny, but I did have fun, but I still feel empty." Zetsu gave Naruto a nod. Black Zetsu said, "It's fully grown now." Naruto smiled. He was happy with what he had made. He had started working on it before Madara, what he called the old goat, died. Naruto said, "Leave me alone, Zetsu. I need to do this by myself." His smirk went away, and he showed no emotion. Zetsu gave a nod and turned into the ground. Naruto started his journey again, this time to a very specific room in the mountain graveyard. He worked on his project in the room he had reached. He had lived in the dark hovel for more than 2 years before it was fixed up. The walls and floors were now made of concrete, and there was one throne near the edge of the concrete, where a big cliff was. Before the throne, there was a huge tree that looked like a lotus flower. The Gedo Mazo was sitting on top of the flower and its petals. The tree was as tall as the cliff, and there was water below the tree. The stone throne was very well made, Naruto thought as he ran his hand over it. He took a seat and put his arms on the rests. His hood wasn't taken off because he was either too lazy or didn't want to. He did, however, pay attention to his project. The speaker said, "It's been a long time, far too long since I last saw you. Father." On a flower petal, there was a living copy of Madara Uchiha made from his cells, with 8 hands hanging around it. And like Hashirama's living copy, this one will create black Zetsu with the help of the statue's power. I wonder if you're watching over me. Right now. Wherever you are. The beasts. There was no good word to use to describe how angry she was. She already knew that someone else had broken into the village. He was one of her best shinobi that she had lost. And there were the Chunin and the newly promoted Jonin in front of her. The words that came to mind were guilty and let down. As little as 1 day ago, she lost Shino, the heir to the Aburame clan, to someone Choji was calling the Dancing Phantom. It was like what happened with Yokaze not long ago. The problem was that she was the only one who knew who this Dancing Phantom was. He also fought Shikamaru, Neji, Choji, Tenten, Lee, Kiba, and Akamaru, and Shino all at once meant that he was strong and might have been a low cage. He also had a summoning contract that had never been seen before. She had never heard of such a deal before. What did he do to get into the village without being seen? Ryu Yokaze walked right into the village as this man showed up. Like a ghost. But the fact that it happened after Yokaze got through their defenses made it seem odd. Could the footprints of the dragon be bringing in bugs? Could this be the first of many times that their rivals and enemies break into the village? She slammed her fists into her temples in anger. Other villages could use this as a sign to attack, so she had to stop the fighting before she threatened them with war. That which took place must never be known. She looked at the 2 shinobi in front of her with a stern look. Their heads were bowed, and they looked like they were filled with guilt. The threat said, "Tell me what happened in every detail. Now." Tsunade told someone they were planning to kill. Neji and Shikamaru went into great detail about what happened before, during, and after their fight. Tsunade paid close attention. Her eyes were narrowed the whole time. She was told about the man's skills, prowess, and fighting style. In her mind, she said that Sais the weapon were an unusual choice for battle, but since the person showed mastery over them, he was good at using them. From what she knew about this person, she noticed that he looked a lot like Ryu Yokaze when they were fighting. Ryu Yokaze wore armor that looked like that of a samurai, so the man's clothes didn't match. So it couldn't have been him. This man wore black gloves, boots, and a cloak with silver drawstrings. She let out a sigh. She couldn't put this man in the bingo book because it would make Konoha look weak, and she didn't need an enemy ninja showing up in her village. If Danzo found out, he might use the chance to get rid of her as Hokage. Sei had to hide it. She was going to tell the shinobi who had fought the Dancing Phantom, not to say anything about it, but Shino's father, Shibi Aburame, found out about it. Of course, she would need Shibi's help to make up a fake cause of death. Once she was sure of what she was going to do, she turned her attention to Shikamaru and Neji. Tsunade growled and asked, "What were you two thinking?" They didn't answer because they were too scared to look her in the eye. When this person infiltrated the village, it was to be brought to my attention immediately. Neji hung his head even lower. He felt guilty about killing Shino because it was his plan to face the attacker. We could have taken appropriate steps and formulated a plan to capture him. But no, you charged in without any assessment of the infiltrator's abilities, especially you Shikamaru. Tsunade went on. He looked Shikamaru in the eye. I expected better from you. Given your shinobi record, you have the best analyzing ability among your graduating class where you were able to form correct strategies against your opponents, and yet you didn't use any strategy against this man. In fact, why didn't you think through all the possibilities of the outcome? You should have foreseen what would have happened. And you're not in the clear either, Neji. After being let down, Neji turned her head to the side. You're a newly promoted Jonin, so I expected more from you. As a Jonin, you were responsible for the safety and lives of your comrades and fellows in arms. You were the team leader, so everything that has happened is because of you. I would have much preferred if this Dancing Phantom escaped without killing anyone. If it wasn't for the arrival for Kurenai and the other shinobi among her, you could have all died. Yelled at Tsunade. But I guess I expected too much from the both of you, and now you have lost yet another comrade and friend. Tsunade told me. Tsunade told them, both of you, give me your hitai. 8. Both of them nodded when she told them to, knowing that they would be punished for what they did. Neji took off his and showed off the bird cage seal on the front of his head. Hikaru took off his hitai 8 from his uniform, which it was sewn into. You are both suspended from active shinobi duty for a month. You are permitted to train your skills, though if you leave the village you will be sentenced for treason and insubordination. Tsunade was threatened. Both of them said, yes, and left the room, leaving Tsunade alone. Both of them failed to tell her about the intruder, and if they had, she could have made a plan to catch him and get any information he had. It could have been quick, quiet, and no one would have been hurt. She knew that a shinobi had to die, but having her own shinobi die in her village was a whole other thing. She rubbed her temples in anger and frustration. She had fought Hanzo of the Salamander, who was known as one of the strongest shinobi in the world. She, Orochimaru, and Jiraiya were able to survive because they worked together and planned their moves. They would have won the battle if she had gone up against him by herself, and no one would have remembered them if they had worked together. She also had to deal with another issue, and Kakashi was right. Half of the civilian population refused to believe that Naruto was the son of the Yondaime, and most of them, if not all of them, went to the hospital to stroke their cocky egos. They tried to find proof that she was wrong but only found proof that she was right. This didn't change their minds though. They still thought of him as the demon. Was this the village that her grandfather and Madara Uchiha had planned? Was this the village for which the last Hokage had fought and died? Minato gave up his son's life and happiness so that the village could be safe, and he would do it again in an instant. What did her teacher say about the will of fire? Was the dead Sannin right about what Orochimaru said about the village and its virtues? Was the will of fire becoming less strong? For what did her shinobi fight? People in the village left one of their own to a traitor with a cursed family history. The traitor didn't care about the village at all, but they still praise him. After that, there was trouble when 3 council families died. Later that day, they would be laid to rest. Even though she didn't say it, she was glad Marichio Maeda and his family were gone. The fat jerk got what was coming to him, and that awful painting he had was reason enough to kill him. She also thought that the dancing phantom had killed him and the other families on the council. That could have been the reason. His funeral would be quiet, and his body would be burned so that the secrets of the village and his clan wouldn't get into the hands of their enemies. As she often did, Tsunade turned her chair around to face the village. It rained once more. It rained more after Naruto died. Why, though? Then Tsunade had a bad feeling, like something terrible was going to happen and she couldn't stop it. She knew it wasn't fear, anger, or hatred. It was creepy. It was as if she knew something terrible was about to happen that would affect everyone in the village. But she felt like someone she knew was setting fire to her house. That's why. A bet slip came out of one of her drawers when she opened it. This was the only way to prove what she thought. She had won, she had the lucky numbers. That was a lot of money for her to lose. Besides that, she won all the other slips of paper that were drawn. She was also sure that something terrible would happen. Why do I feel like we're going to get something? I can feel, but I can't. It seems empty, like there are no feelings or colors there. Tsunade thought, something bad is going to happen, and we will all pay for it. In the cemetery on the mountain. Inside a dark hut, there was a man sitting on a stone throne with a cliff and a huge lotus flower that was as tall as a mountain in front of him. On top of the flower was a huge, broken down statue that was sitting cross-legged with its hands bowed. The man was dressed in a black cloak with silver drawstrings, black gloves, and black shoes lined with silver. The man zipped up the cloak from the collar that reached his chin to his waist. The armrests of the throne held both of his arms. Because his hood was down, everyone could see his shiny golden hair and angry red eyes. He was looking very intently at a strange branch that was growing out of one of the flower petals. It was an exact copy of Madara Uchiha that was still alive. The man had been taking care of it since before Madara died. That's right, the giant lotus tree could now use the chakra taken from his body that belonged to the Kyuubi to create and grow both black and white Zetsu. He couldn't take his eyes off the strange copy of Madara. But his mind wasn't on the clone. It was on something else, a jutsu that really annoyed him. The Hiraishin, thunder god in the sky. One of the world's best jutsu styles ever made. It was made by Tobarama Senju, the Naidem Hokage, and improved by Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage. Naruto Uzumaki, son of the Yondaime and student of Madara Uchiha, was sitting on his throne. Someone from outside the Uchiha clan who is the most powerful with the Sharingan and the real heir to the Uzumaki clan. He was thinking about the jutsu that made his dad famous as Kiroi Senko, Yellow Flash. He thought the Hiraishin was a beautiful piece of art, making it possible for the user to teleport to any marked location faster than light. It was so strong that you couldn't blink before you died. Even so, the blonde person who was using the Sharingan was furious. The Nidem must have worked on the jutsu for a long time, and his father must have worked on it even longer. Naruto would have to learn it over many years because he was impatient. He hated having to wait for something. He also didn't like it when people paused in their speeches or when they went food shopping and took longer than they needed to before they could choose what they wanted. He didn't have the patience to work on the jutsu, though, so he was going to do something else. Make up his own ninjutsu for space and time. He was already thinking about it at the moment. This new weapon was going to be as fast as the Hiraishin and as useful as Obito's teleportation. He could see it now. Deidara and Sasori would think that this kind of jutsu was art. Because he only met his teacher's fake for a short time and only saw him teleport twice. When Naruto looked at the technique, he saw that it wasn't as fast as the Hiraishin, but it was more flexible because it didn't need a jutsu formula to pinpoint where to use it. He was looking at Madara's copy and making plans for his next jutsu. Though it would take some time, he could always use that power to be in two places at once to give it more thought. He would stay at his base and work on his space time ninjutsu. This would also give him a chance to meet Kisame and another Akatsuki member. Naruto barked, "Zetsu!" as he stared emotionlessly at the statue of Madara. The man in black and white appeared out of thin air next to Naruto's throne. The plant man replied, "Yes, yes." Naruto told them, "Bring me a Zetsu clone." The many-colored Zetsu nodded at the blonde and sent a silent message to a different clone. This was possible because all Zetsus were mentally connected. A white Zetsu clone appeared out of nowhere and knelt down in front of Naruto. Naruto told him, "Raise your head." There was no face of his master when the Zetsu did what it was told. Instead, a katana slid through its mouth and killed it. Naruto held the Tanbogiri in his right hand and looked at the dead Zetsu with a blank look on his face. Putting his foot on the Zetsu's shoulder, it was easy for him to lift the sword off of its body. The body fell forward and hit the hard concrete floor face first. Naruto stabbed the Tanbogiri into the ground, and his eternal Mangekyo appeared and started spinning like a wheel. Naruto said, "Bring me more corpses, Zetsu." And two more Zetsu showed up. Naruto grabbed the Tanbogiri and used one swing to cut off the heads of both Zetsu. Their heads rolled around on the ground like balls. He also had a Mangekyo that was spinning, just like before. "I need your help, Zetsu. I need to practice this jutsu in a place with limited space. Also, I need to call Conan and let her know that my personal business will be delayed." They left the mountain graveyard, with Naruto turning into a cloud of bats and Zetsu merging with the ground. The blonde arrived at a small area of forest with trees close together but still wide enough for movement and acrobatics. In this moment, Kisame Hoshigaki, the Kirigakure no Kaijin, monster of the hidden mist, was stuffed with shrimp and crab that he had brought with him from Itachi's trip through the land of grass. At that moment, he was sitting in a small seafood store next to an inn. He was by himself, but he knew that Itachi had a disease that could not be cured and was slowly killing him, even though he could make his life longer with different medicines and alchemical substances. So Itachi was taking a break in their inn room. He couldn't have picked a better time, either, since the sun was setting, marking the end of the day. Kisame was like a battle master. He loved fighting and wouldn't think twice about starting a fight when the chance came up, but Itachi's warnings would make him calm down. When he thought about the rest of the Akatsuki, he did like some of them. He didn't like Hidan or his silly religion. He liked Sasori because he was just as eager to fight as he was, and he beat the third Kazekage, which wasn't bad considering Orochimaru helped him. He didn't like Deidara at all, especially when she and Sasori got into a fight over whose art was better. "I hated art, Kisame." He also liked Kakazu because he wasn't annoying and liked money, which was something everyone else did except Hidan. "Hi, Conan." The two of them didn't talk to each other very often, and when they did, it was just a few polite words. In other words, he had no side with Conan. "Hello, Zetsu." He was confused about Zetsu, the person in charge of the group. Without a doubt, he respected pain, But like Conan, he wasn't on either side with him because Pain was Obito's pawn and Kisame was working with him. The person he liked next to Itachi was Rai. He liked Ryu's personality even though they had only talked a few times at Akatsuki meetings. He made him laugh. And how he made Hidan look like a fool. However, Kisame had a feeling that Ryu was very strong. The shark and the wolf had to fight to see how strong the wolf really was. Then Kisame felt someone sitting across from him on the chair across from him. When he looked up, he saw a man dressed in a black cloak with silver drawstrings, black gloves, and shoes lined with silver. Only his chin, mouth, and nose could be seen because his hood was up. Kisame, who looked angry, asked, "Do you want something?" The person said, "Yes, I do want something." He took off his hood and showed off his golden blonde, spiked hair that was pulled back into a low ponytail and wrapped in bandages around half of it. He had hair that fell to his chin and framed the sides of his face. Some of it fell between his narrow, slightly round eyes. His jawline was clear, and his face was a little round. His eyes, on the other hand, were Sharingan eyes, the same eyes Itachi had. Darkness and hate could be seen in those eyes. Kisame knew right away who it was because the person looked familiar. But it couldn't be that person because he was dead, so there was only one answer. Kisame, who was grinning and showing his shark like teeth, said, "Ryu Yokaze, good to see you." To be honest, he didn't think his fellow Akatsuki member would see him. "How was your day, Kisame?" Ryu asked in a polite way. Since Kisame had dealt with many other shinobi, he had a second sense that let him know someone wanted something from him. He asked, "Don't see how you're interested, and besides, skip to the point, what do you want?" As usual, he skipped the "hello" nonsense and got right to the main course. Naruto told him, "You're very smart." At that very moment, a waitress came over to serve Naruto. He asked for green tea, which came quickly. Some minutes went by with no sound at all. Before Ryu got his food, Kisame was still eating the crab and shrimp. Naruto is now drinking green tea while Kisame waits patiently for him. Naruto said, "I know everything about you, Kisame." The man who looked like a shark didn't know whether to scowl or feel violated. "I know about what you did during the bloodline purges. I also know that you were approached by a person claiming to be someone he isn't." Naruto went on. Kisame's eyes got a little bigger. "Trust me when I say this, the person you're working with is a nothing but a bitter loser who thinks he can parade around with a name he can't live up to." Kisame looked at Naruto with narrowed eyes. What was this guy trying to say? Naruto kept talking as if he could read his mind. "After you killed Fuguki Suikazan, you were approached by the Yondaime Mizukage who applauded you for eliminating a traitor and protecting your village. However, the Yondaime was merely a puppet, you were merely approached by the puppet master through his toy," spoke Naruto with strong control. Kisame's eyes got a little bigger when he heard the news. "And I will warn you now, that man is not who he claims to be. You may think he is who he says he is, but he's used your own beliefs to sway you to his cause. What do you expect he will do once he's finished with his plans?" asked Naruto. Kisame didn't answer right away. He thought about it for a while. There was some truth to what Yokaze said too. That's what Tobi told Kisame. He wanted to make a weapon that would destroy all lies. But the shark man could always tell Tobi had a secret goal, he just couldn't put his finger on it. He knew the world was full of lies and false promises from people he trusted, but they always led him astray. When he killed Fuguki, he finally gave up under the stress. Tobi gave him a choice, and he chose to go with it. But the man in the mask told him that lies would no longer be told. Was that also just a lie? Was Tobi telling him lies? Naruto got Kisame's attention by saying, "He's going to betray you." The shark man looked up and saw his partner sipping his green tea. "His name is Obito Uchiha, and the person you're working with is going to betray you." He set down his cup and poured himself another cup of green tea. And he's nothing more than a bitter loser who got friend-zoned and now wishes everybody to feel his anger by creating a weapon using the power of the tailed beasts. Where everybody would live in terror and lies and betrayal would be more rampant. According to Naruto, he's a mere child throwing a temper tantrum, he refuses to see truth and his anger grows by the day. You're nothing more than his tool and once you're broken he will discard you like any other broken toy. Naruto said while sipping his tea. He gave Kisame a silent genjutsu as he looked him in the eye. With this genjutsu, which is meant to get information from the target, the blonde would know everything Kisame knew about Obito. Because Obito. You are connected to both fire and earth release, are a master of genjutsu, have a lot of skill in bukajutsu and weapon skills, seal things with some skill but not as much as I do, have high chakra reserves clearly above Kage, are experienced in taijutsu, and know about Kamui, a space time ninjutsu that is unlike any other. Not much more to say after that, Naruto thought. He sipped his tea and felt good about his win. Kisame stuttered, why? You're. What Ryu said was different from everything he knew about Tobi, but it sounded true. He wasn't telling lies. That's not right, Naruto said. Naku said, you can say that for now. Kisame. This world is sick. Fettered with a disease known as hatred. I wish to rid the disease by creating a world where there is none of that, a perfect world, where betrayal and deceit never exist. There would only be truth and love and nothing else will corrupt those pure things. Said Naruto. Why do you think I should trust or believe you? Kisame asked, his eyes getting narrow. However, Naruto's emotionless face didn't show anything. Because of one simple fact, Ryu replied. Naruto whispered, my name is Madara Uchiha. Kisame said in a deadpan voice, you have blonde hair. Kisame quickly woke up. And you have blue skin and gills. So even if you were Madara, how do I know I can still trust you when the other guy said he was Madara too? Kisame asked with a smile because he thought this guy's chances sounded better than Obito's and he wanted to get a fight because he loved fighting and all the talk about Ryu. Naruto tried to get Kisame's attention by saying, how about a bet? We have a battle, no rules, no restrictions, no interferences, just a one fight between the two of us. Kisame smiled. He wasn't sure if he should believe Ryu. Why don't we add some more money to the pot? Kisame asked. If you win I'll join your plan and abandon that obi. Whatever, and if I win, well I don't really want anything other than to feed your chakra to Samahata. Talk to Kisame. What Naruto said was, very well. Let's have this fight in an hour. There is a clearing not far from here, it's not too small and it's large enough to sport our battle while it's far enough from here that it won't attract attention. When Kisame said, yes, Naruto left in a cloud of bats, leaving Kisame alone in the seafood shop with the bill for Naruto's and his own orders. While this was going on, another Naruto was standing in the forest next to Zetsu's main body. Zetsu asked, so what will this jutsu do? The way Naruto looked at Zetsu scared the plant man. This jutsu will take the limits of time to its greatest point. Teleporting something to you is easy, teleporting yourself is another annoying hurdle. This jutsu will literally make time bend to my will. I already have the idea for it now, I just need to employ it. Made clear Naruto. Zetsu almost looked like he sighed. Whenever Naruto thought of a new jutsu, he worked on it non-stop until he was good at it. Besides that, he was still very stubborn from when he was a Jinchuriki. If he set his mind to something, he wouldn't give up. I will use the Hiraishin and Obito's Kamui as basis. The Hiraishin's speed and Kamui's versatility will be major factors in the Rakuten no Yoroi, lightning release armor, provides the general concept and appearance of the technique. Naruto went on as Zetsu let everything sink in. Naruto began to gather his chakra into a shield around his body. There was so much of it that it could be seen. It was going to take a while. It will take years to build up a jutsu of this size, and what Naruto showed Zetsu was just the beginning stages of the technique's growth. He had just come up with the idea that he would focus his chakra on his surroundings and do something. Zetsu watched in silence as Naruto wrapped himself in chakra. Naruto quickly stopped the flow. Black Zetsu knew what the blonde was planning before she did it. And then Zetsu heard a Naruto yelled, Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, as he made the signature. This made a lot of shadow clones, and each one started working on the shields. They would first practice with their chakra cloaks until they could turn them on and off without much thought. It would become second nature. Zetsu White said, this is going to take a while. Yep. While someone was in Konohagakure, they were sad. She had jet black hair and blood red eyes, and two people were comforting her at the moment. There is Asuma Sarutobi and Hinata Hyuga. The name of this person is Kurenai Yuhi. Why was she so upset? She had just seen one of her favorite students get killed right in front of her. His home village is where he was brutally killed. Shino was an important part of the team. He was also the group's thinker, always coming up with smart ways to trick and outsmart his enemies. He was also their support, and his bugs were great for tracking, spying, and capturing. She asked many times why the Aburame had died. She felt bad that she missed her chance to get to him. She thought the man in the black cloak moved too quickly, like lightning. She wanted to know how Shibi Aburame was doing at the moment. Most Aburame were very good at hiding their feelings. You could never tell how they were feeling. But Kurenai knew that Shibi was sad and thinking about getting revenge. Get even. So badly did she want that. To kill the person who took her student. She planned to kill the man in a painful way and kept an eye on the whole thing. Even though she thought about what had happened to Sasuke Uchiha, she knew that killing the man would not make her feel better. But would it matter if it hurt the person who killed Shino? At the moment, Kurenai was sitting at her table with Asuma in a chair next to her and Hinata sitting next to her. When Asuma Sarutobi saw her crying quietly, he rubbed her shoulder gently to comfort her. "Kurenai," he said. "You need to accept what happened and move on." "He's right, Kurenai. Sensei," Hinata said. Who was interested in Kiba's whereabouts because she thought he would want to be here. She was also trying to get over how sad it made her to see her friend and teammate die. She was close with Shino and was shocked to learn that he was just gone made her cry. The man Kurenai, who spoke like a broken violin, said, "You too didn't see it." As a few salty drops fell from Kurenai's chin, she said, "You didn't see his blood splatter across the ground." Asuma let out a heavy sigh. He couldn't stress with her because none of his students were dead. Hinata gave a sad look to the ground. She might have been able to help if she had been there. The black cloaked man might not have been able to get away without her help. She stopped worrying about what might happen because she knew it was making her feel worse. Kurenai said in a quiet voice, "I just need to be left alone for a while." Then Asuma said, "Kurenai." She screamed, "Leave," as his tears got worse. When Asuma said, "Yes," Hinata left with him. Kurenai was now by himself. And she let out her pain through sobs and wails of sadness. She should have been there sooner. Kiba was drinking away his sadness in a bar at the moment. He was in pain, just like Kurenai. Even though Shino was a weirdo, he was one of his best friends. His dog Akamaru was next to him and was pawing at his leg to get his attention. The dog felt his partner's pain, but it was smarter than his partner and knew that this wasn't the right way to deal with what had happened. Kiba put a bottle of sake to his lips and took a big gulp of the drink, which could be heard. The bartender didn't want to talk over the young man because, for one, Inuzuka were known to have short-fused tempers and, for another, he wanted the kid to drink away his problems even though he wasn't old enough to do so. It said, "Hey buddy. More sake and make it snappy." The bartender nodded and pulled out another bottle of sake. He put it in front of Kiba, who took it and began drinking it very quickly. As the drink went down to his stomach, he could feel his throat flame up. He knew he was going to be really drunk the next day, but he didn't care. In the left corner, he saw Shino's father, Shibi Aburame, sitting next to him. He felt like someone was next to him. His voice was monotone as he said, "Kiba." Kiba had known Shino for years and could tell how he was feeling by the way he spoke. And Kiba knew right away that Shiba was sad, which wasn't like the Aburame family. As Kiba turned back to his drink, he said, "Hey Shibi. Sama." While this was going on, Akamaru was still trying to get Kiba's attention by biting and scratching his leg. Shibi said, "I don't blame you for what happened to Shino." Kiba looked at him with slightly wide eyes. "The Hokage informed me of what happened." Kiba let out a tired sigh. Ryu Yokaze almost killed the heir to the house of Inuzuka. And the dancing phantom's palms almost killed him. He should be thankful to be alive at all if it weren't for help arriving. But why didn't he feel relieved? He should have been happy, but instead he felt guilty and was wondering if he should have died instead of Shino. It had been a long time since Kiba had been so badly beaten. The man in the black cloak was just messing around with them, except for the few hits Lee got. He had trained and gone on missions for 2 years, but it had not helped. He wanted to get stronger to beat Naruto, who he saw as his rival, after losing his first Chunin exam. But since Naruto died, why was he getting stronger? Did he have any other goal besides letting his friends die? Shibi pointed to the sake bottle Kiba was holding and said, "Kiba. This won't make the pain go away, and it won't bring Shino back," Shibi said, and her voice broke. Then Kiba thought he saw something that looked like a tear. She couldn't say anything bad about the man for it. Before he went to the pub to wash away his sadness, he had cried. "What I'm trying to say is, Kiba, do you want to spend the rest of your days looking down at the bottom of a glass? Or will you change yourself for the better so something like this won't happen again?" Shibi spoke with wisdom. It seemed like Kiba was really taking in everything Shibi said. He was thinking about something when he heard a loud crash coming from the front door of the pub. The screeching voice of Sume Inuzuka said, "Kiba, you lazy bum. Stop moping around and do something productive and become stronger so to avenge your creepy friend. I will never know how he knew about Shino's death. It will always be a mystery. M.A. Hanada's not creepy," yelled Kiba, who had clearly heard her wrong. Sume yelled, "No, you idiot. Not the weird stalker, the nasty bug boy." He hadn't seen Shibi sitting next to Kiba yet. "Seriously, I hate bugs. If only I had a bigger boot, then I can crush them all," Sume said softly. The loud woman made Shibi sweat, and Sume's original sentence told Kiba everything he wanted to say. He did question how she was going about getting the point across, though. Why did she hate bugs so much? Even though she was grinding her teeth, Sume stomped up to her stupid son. Even though she didn't show it, Kiba's negative attitude was making her sad. She stopped, though, when she saw the sake bottles Kiba was holding and the one next to him. She turned the palm of her hand back and slammed it into the back of her son's head all at once. There was a loud smack, and Kiba was knocked out for a short time. To a lot of parents, that was her way of disciplining and punishing Kiba when he did something wrong. As Shibi watched from the sidelines, she broke out in a cold sweat. He wasn't sure whether to be scared or confused. Sume grabbed Kiba by the collar of his black jacket and swung him around like a rag doll. Kiba was completely confused from his mother's love. As Sume continued to talk about bugs in her boot, she said, "I didn't raise a wimp so he can just mope around when one of his friends gets squashed. Now let's go." Kiba squeaked, "Where?" as he woke up and was being dragged out of the pub by the back of his collar. "I told him to go training, moron." Akamaru barked the whole way after his partner and his mother. Shibi was not with anyone. Until the bartender came back. He asked, "Are you going to pay for the kids' drinks?" Shibi became sad again all of a sudden. Sasori and his partner Deidara were traveling through the land of hot water at the moment. They had just finished a job for a snobbish daimyo where they had to get rid of some annoying nobles who were rich. He had to wait 10 months before he and Deidara could go after the Jinchuriki. He had to wait even longer, though, because the Kyuubi was still coming together into a whole being. And Sasori hated waiting more than anything else in the world. The puppet master was known for being very impatient, which was annoying. People who couldn't decide what to say or paused during their speeches did bother him. But he didn't like it when they took too long to attack him. Also because of his age. Sasori was a skilled shinobi who could tell which shinobi were which by looking at their skills. In his now eternal life, he could still remember his biggest battle. The fight he had with the Sandame Cage. The redhead had fought tougher opponents before the Cage. Because he studied the Ichibi no Tanuki, he was smart enough to make the iron sand. The iron sand had wiped out all of Sasori's puppets that he had gathered over the years. And he had to say nice things about the Sandame. He was smart. The iron sand was art, and now it was Sasori's art. With a poison that the missing nin had made, Sasori was able to kill the Sandame after a long battle. Sasori then turned his body into his most beloved puppet and most important piece of art. "Sasori, my man, there's an inn up ahead, and since it's getting late we should book a room for the night. After all, wouldn't your dolls be getting, I don't know, creaky and unartistic, Deidara grumbled, trying to persuade. "I told you, Deidara, they are not dolls but eternal beauties. You could never understand, for you dabble in the incorrect way of art. Like I told you many times before, my art is true art. Not your repugnant version of your so-called art." Sasori took a step back. He told Sasori, "Hey, man, calm down. I was just pulling your wooden leg." Deidara smiled in his favorite way. Sasori replied, "Shut up." Who looked out of the corner of his eye at something. The figure was a dark shadow that moved through the trees next to the road. It had been following him for half an hour. At the moment, the figure was walking steadily, with steps that looked like Deidara's. Sasori told Deidara, "Go ahead of me. I'll catch up." He smiled and walked toward the inn ahead of him, even though Deidara gave him a strange look. Sasori walked through the forest, seeing all the green trees along the way. He then saw a figure in a black cloak whose head covered most of his face. Sasori said, "You've been following me." That thing didn't move or make any facial expressions. "I can feel that you don't want anything to do with Deidara, you want something from me." As the cloaked person spoke, "Yes, Sasori." In a neutral tone. He took off his hood so that Sasori could see his face. He wore his blonde hair in a low ponytail that was half wrapped in bandages. He had chin length bangs that hugged the sides of his face, and one bang fell between his eyes and split at the bridge of his nose. His face was narrow, and his eyes were nearly round. He also had a pair of Sharingan in each eye socket. "I've been meaning to meet with you for a while." Sasori laughed a little because he knew this person well and could recognize him right away. It made Sasori laugh to say, "Ryu Yokaze. To what do I owe the pleasure?" As Naruto had already said, "As I said, I've been meaning to meet with you. There is something I want your help with." Sasori asked, "And that is?" "Seeing as how I'm the newest member of the Akatsuki, I wish to help expand the organization's influence, and I was told you were the best person to help me." Rai said with no response. When Yokaze spoke, Sasori knew there was more to it than what he said. Most of the members didn't care about Akatsuki's main goal, so they stayed for no clear reason. Sasori, who was a little annoyed, said, "Give up the act and tell me what you really want. I hate being kept waiting." Naruto said, "Smart would be the best word to use to describe you." With his chakra, Naruto's right index finger began to glow blue. He pressed his finger into the ground, and over time, a map of the world of shinobi appeared. Sasori knew right away what the Tekoku Fuin, hand carved seal, was. Naruto explained, "I want spies to be set up in each of the 5 great shinobi nations so they can give me information and also act as sleeper agents." He then named the 5 main countries that each had the strongest ninja villages. Sasori looked over the map and said, "Now I see why you came to me. But tell me, what are you planning with the villages?" "Something that doesn't really involve you, but what I said earlier about aiding the Akatsuki's plans was the truth." "In a way," replied Naruto. "A plan on this scale can't be easy." "And what do I get out of this?" asked Sasori. When Ryu looked at him, he didn't show much emotion. Ryu put his left hand inside one of the pockets on the inside of his coat. On a scroll tied with twine and written with the kanji for human, he took it off. Sasori looked at the scroll for a second, not sure what to think about it. Naruto explained as he stared blankly at Sasori. "This scroll contains the bodies of several shinobi who I believe would be very valuable to you." The puppet master in his puppet armor didn't move at all. "I am aware that you can create human puppets from the bodies of real people, and they can retain their abilities from life and can be used in death in the body of a wooden machination." Sasori asked, "May I also ask what's in the scroll?" He was interested in what was written on that scroll and how it could help him. "This scroll contains the corpses of shinobi of Konoha. Before I came here I took the liberty of ambushing several teams of Konoha-nin with the Land of Fire and stored their bodies within the scroll. Most are just average ninja cannon fodder, but the others are corpses of Yamanaka, Aburame and Nara-nin," said in Rai. Sasori gave a small smirk from inside his human puppet. He could only imagine the art he could make with their bodies. They were from 3 strong clans in the Hidden Leaf village. As Sasori took off his Akatsuki cloak, he said, "Very good. I'll help you since the price is right." That's when Ryu saw the fat puppet open up. Inside its shell was a human head with its mouth shut, and the puppet fell to the ground as a dark clad figure rose from it. Naruto said, "I guess you don't want to show me your face." Ryu noticed that Sasori's voice was less grumpy and sounded younger when he said, "Yeah. If you don't mind." Someone in dark clothes reached out and put out a hand with a scroll in it. Ryu saw Sasori's Akatsuki ring, which connected him to the Gedo Mazo. In the manga and anime, the ring's uses are unknown, so just go with the flow. A jutsu scroll was given to Naruto by Sasori after the human scroll was given to him. That scroll has a jutsu that can erase your target's memories, and if you want, you can bring them back from anywhere in the world. The scroll can explain the rest, Sasori said as he turned back into his human puppet. The blonde was going to use genjutsu to take over the minds of some shinobi from each major village and turn them into his little mice. Ryu nodded at the former Suna shinobi. If you want, I can continue to help you, for the right price. And by price, you mean fresh bodies, preferably ones with Keki Genkai, Naruto replied. Sasori, who was now inside his puppet that looked like a scorpion, nodded with the head of his puppet. It was great doing business with you, and I appreciate your help, Naruto said. Right in front of Sasori's eyes, Ryu turned into a cloud of bats and flew away. Sasori watched as the flying animals took off. Today, Sasori learned something really cool. Ryu Yokaze was a really interesting person. Yo, Sasori, my man, what's up? Deidara grunted as he came out from behind Sasori. Even though the clay user didn't care what happened to the Suna shinobi, he was interested in what happened to his partner. He also didn't want to get in trouble with the group's leader. Shut up, Deidara, Sasori told her as he walked by. You're annoying. While Deidara would have taken Sasori to task for what he said, the blonde Iwa Nin was used to being abused by men ever since he joined the Akatsuki. Both people began their hike on the same road they were walking before. Sasori couldn't help but think about what Ryu had planned. What did the dragon want to do? What would happen because of what he did? It was Konohagakure time, and Tsunade Senju was busy with her job as Hokage. Authorizing missions and taking care of the village's trade with nearby land of fire towns and cities. Recently, the fire daimyo was worried that he and his council were not sure how strong Konoha was. How he learned about the Yokaze and Dancing Phantom events was unknown, but Tsunade had a wild guess that it was Danzo, the smart old badger. He had actually been missing for a few weeks and then suddenly showed up again. Where is he now? Who did he see? She thought that Danzo might have told the daimyo about Konoha's sneaky entry so that he could use it to get rid of her as Hokage. Danzo had to be closely watched. She had to keep an eye on him and his movements. She didn't know what he was planning, but Tsunade knew that Danzo loved the village more than anything else. She thought back to one of the lessons Sarutobi taught her when she was his student. Don't judge us by our methods. Judge us by what we want to achieve. This meant that you should question someone's methods but not their intentions. Even now, she doesn't understand that lesson because it seemed to mean the opposite of what it was supposed to. Then she thought about the Aburame family, whose funeral for Shino was tomorrow. The Aburame were very sad about his death because they had lost one of their best ninjas. At the time, both Shikamaru and Neji were acting stupidly. They didn't know what the enemy could do, so they rushed ahead without thinking. That was how he used to be, and she could remember everything about the blonde. She couldn't think about the past too much, though, because it would hurt her in the end. Then she heard something strange coming from behind her. She didn't think much of it until she heard it again. This time, she turned around in her chair and saw a jet. Black crow sitting on the windowsill with a scroll tied to its back. It was pecking at her window to get her attention. The crow flew in through the open window when she got up from her chair and perched itself on her desk. She went over to the scroll and took the string off of its back. She took the thin paper out of its binding and read what was inside. That was a message, and she didn't know who sent it. It was very short and almost useless. She looked back at the crow as it flew out the window and into the sky, where it was getting darker because night was coming. Then she put the scroll back on her desk so that everyone could see what was written on it. Nobodies like him may act like they feel things, but this is just a trick. People like him don't have feelings. But he remembers what it was like, which is what makes him unique, and he knows how to hurt someone's feelings very well. Watch out for him. She didn't know what to think about the message. It was almost nonsense, and who was this nobody who could hurt someone's feelings? What the heck did that mean? It made her sigh that things had been changing so quickly. She could tell that someone was putting the puzzle pieces together. She couldn't shake the feeling that Yokaze had something to do with it, though. Conan was in her hotel room in Kirigakure at the moment. The Mizukage was so nice that she paid for the service herself. The blonde still hadn't come back after Ma. Rai left for business a day ago. She would be lying if Conan said she didn't worry about him. She was the only person in the world besides Zetsu, and they had been together for a while. Did he really count as a person? Okay, don't bother. She was the only one who could say she knew Yokaze the best. She hadn't seen all of his real powers yet. Besides what was written in the bingo books, the only other things she knew about his skills were. But she didn't know anything about his personality besides the fact that he liked to train and get better at jutsu. She didn't know anything about him, but she did know everything. Since Conan has been Nagato's partner for years, he can see how someone is feeling even when they aren't making a face. But when she talked to Rai, she couldn't see or feel any emotion. It was like she was talking to him through him instead of to him. She did know one thing, though, she could see and feel it was hurting him. It seemed to come from him. He was always in pain, and when she asked him what was wrong, it made him hurt even more. His hurt. She knew that Ryu Yokaze's power was higher than Nagato's. Aside from his time in Konohagakure, she only knew a little about Madara Uchiha's past. She knew that he had left the village and fought Hashirama Senju. She was sad because she didn't know how to make him feel better. It's possible that he was trying to get to the dream world to get away from his pain. She gave up trying to figure it out. If you think about it for a while, nothing will happen. She got up from the chair, left her hotel room, and went out to see more of Kirigakure. In a small but not too small field, two men were standing next to each other. The grass moved with the wind, and the sky was quickly becoming darker, a sign that night was coming and the moon would be at its fullest. These two men were both wearing black cloaks, but one of them had red clouds on it, and he carried a huge sword that looked a bit like a claymore. His skin was blue, and he had gills on his cheekbones. He also had blue hair, green eyes, and teeth that looked like sharp blades. The monster of the hidden mist, Kisame Hoshigaki, was here. He was one of the famous 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist.
The swordsman said that Kisame was their most powerful member, and because he had so much chakra, they called him Tailed Beast Without a Tail.
You should not be careless around Kisame, or he will flay your body around like a shark. Ryu Yokaze, also known as the Yokaze no Ryu, Dragon of the Night Wind, was the other person. Shinobi all over the world had heard of this man in just over a month. Ryu was seen as an expert at sneaking up on people and killing them. He was also an S-ranked shinobi and the strongest person outside the Uchiha clan who could use the Sharingan. Ryu was tall, and his golden blonde, spiky hair made people think of the sun. Women thought he looked great, and the fact that he mostly wore black clothes led to his other name, Kuro Ryu, which means Black Dragon. Ryu wore a black cloak like his fellow Akatsuki member, but his didn't have clouds on it. Instead, it had a hood with drawstrings. Shall we begin, Ryu? Samahata wants to know what your chakra tastes like, Kisame said with a smile as he took his huge sword off his back. Ryu didn't say anything, but a sword came out of his sleeve and into his black-gloved hand. He turned the blade around to get used to how heavy it was. It was the gun he used most often. Tanbogiri. No. Tsurugi, which means dragonfly-cutting sword, Naruto would also have to hold back so as not to kill Kisame. This time, it won't be like the last time, when he fought the Konoha ninjas just for fun. He had to be careful, though, because Kisame's sword could take chakra. Only one downside, Naruto said to get Kisame's attention. No killing. That made Kisame frown. But then he thought about what pain would do to him, even though the leader knew Kakazu would kill all of his partners except Hidan. He was sure that the group would not be able to find another person like Ryu. Kisame did not think about what was going on. The shark man slashed the ground with his sword and began making hand seals for a B. Level Jutsu. Sweden. Bakusu Shouho, water release, exploding water colliding wave. Kisame spit out a huge amount of water at Naruto, which quickly flooded the area. Ryu jumped into the air to get out of the way of the wave's path. He plans to use the environment to his advantage by flooding the area with water. This will lower the chakra cost of his water techniques and give him the option of fighting underwater. It didn't matter if he hit me or not. All he needed was a large body of water. As a result, my fire techniques will be almost useless unless I combine them with my wind jutsu to make them stronger and hotter. Otherwise, the water will just douse my flames. Also, Samahata can absorb chakra, so my masked beasts are almost useless against Kisame because they are made of chakra, Naruto thought as he landed on the water. He also noticed that the water was moving freely. Kisame was really the only one who could release water as well as the Naidem Hokage, even though he couldn't get water from the air to use in his techniques. Naruto used his Sharingan to search through the life, giving liquid for his opponent. It was hard, though, because the water was made of chakra. At the same time, Kisame was underwater making hand seals for a jutsu. Sweden. Gashoku's aim, water release, 5 feeding sharks. Kisame put out his hand and used his chakra to make 5 water sharks. He then aimed them at Ryu and watched as they moved through the water very quickly. When Naruto felt like something was coming at him, he looked down into the water and saw a water shark with sharp teeth hurtling toward him. In order to avoid getting too hurt, Naruto took a step back and let the shark go by. Then he felt a second presence, and another shark jumped out of the water, taking him away from where he was before. He rolled out of the way of another shark with his chakra. 2 more Krasma signatures hit him from both sides. He jumped into the air to get away from the sharks while getting the Tonbogiri ready to stab one of them. He did just that, successfully stabbing one of the sharks in the nose. The shark's body broke apart when it hit the water. Filled field surface. He knew a shark was coming at him because it was rising from the water and flying at him like a torpedo. He spun the Tonbogiri around and stabbed the other shark, which also went into the water. But his problems didn't go away because the 2 sharks started to heal themselves by using the water Kisame made. Kisame smiled while he was underwater. Even if the sharks split up and went into different bodies of water, the water could help them heal. When Ryu jumped to avoid another shark, his leg was crushed between 2 huge jaws. When he looked down, he saw one of the newly regenerated sharks eating his leg. It was bleeding a little, but the wound wasn't too bad that it could hurt someone. Another shark came out of the water and hit Naruto in the chest. He could feel the air leaving his lungs. He's lucky that his ribs didn't break. The person using the Sharingan flew back a little and fell into the water, where one of the 5 sharks grabbed his hurt leg. The blonde let out a quiet yelp as he was pulled into the water. From where he was sitting on the small ocean floor, Kisame frowned. Was that all Rai could do with all the attention he was getting? Even if I kill the sharks, they'll just grow back, Naruto thought. That's why I have to kill Kisame. Even though his leg hurt, he held his breath and sealed his Tonbogiri. He then did several hand seals. He would have to use a stronger wind jutsu because a lightning jutsu would hurt him and Kisame if he used it underwater. I yelled, Futon. Suiseki Ajiki Hantingu Purdeta, wind release, chasing prey hunting predator. As he blew out many wind rabbits. But there were also wind wolves following them. When Kisame saw the dangerous wind, the rabbits and wolves swam away like sharks, but he soon found that the rabbits and wolves were following him, just like his sharks. While Kisame was looking elsewhere, Naruto punched the water shark in the nose. The carnivorous fish let go of Naruto, letting him swim to the surface. Naruto's head broke through the water, and he began gasping for air. He used chakra to move energy through his body, which helped him stay balanced on the water. As he looked down into the blue liquid, he saw Kisame trying his best to avoid the wind animals that were going through the thick water and killing him. A water shark came out from behind and attacked Ryu. Naruto knew what was going on and kicked the shark away with his good leg. The shark then went through some hand seals. Naruto yelled, Raiden, Kangekiha, lightning release, wave of inspiration, and slammed his hands against the small ocean. Electricity shot out and went through the water, making arcs. Because it was moving so fast, Kisame didn't and couldn't see the lightning coming. It was Kisame's environmental advantage that turned against him when the lightning hit. The lightning ran through his body and dulled his senses. The lightning also hit his water sharks, and they were scattered in the water and couldn't get back together. Kisame's body was so numb that Ryu's wind could easily attack him. Lightning doesn't work well against wind, so the flow of lightning didn't hurt the wind rabbits and wolves much. The wolves would attack Kisame after the rabbits tore his sides and body apart. They would do even more damage to the man. As the attack went on, Kisame started to change his mind about Ryu. His own jutsu and the environment were used against him, and he then attacked after his first technique had made him weak. He took the time to use medical ninjutsu to heal his leg. Madara taught him how to use it, but Naruto was terrible at it. He wasn't even close to being as good at healing as Hashirama Senju or Tsunade. He knew enough to keep him safe though. It was Naruto's natural healing power that took care of the rest of the wounds after he was done. He did frown at the holes in his pants where the shark bit him, though. When Naruto looked up, he saw Kisame floating on the water. He thought it was her because she was bloody and torn up. Naruto walked up to Kisame and looked at his wounds. Kisame's chakra signature hadn't gone away yet, so Naruto knew he was still alive and had to give it to him. He was a tough jerk. He used his foot to flip the shark man over. Instead, he found a big bandaged claymore that cut him across the chest diagonally and then down the middle. Shortly after, Naruto fell back and hit his chest on the water. Blood poured out of the cuts on his chest. As Kisame stood up on the water while Samahada healed his wounds, he was told, "Make sure your target is knocked out before you check to see if he's okay." But all of a sudden, Naruto blew up in a cloud of smoke, showing a broken log floating on the water. Kisame frowned and turned his head in different directions to find the blonde in the black cloak. He found him to his left, with his arms crossed and a face that showed no emotion. "And always have a getaway plan if your opponent is waiting to strike." Naruto said this. The blonde was right, so Kisame smiled. The former Kiri nin hasn't had this much fun in a long time. He knew Samahada was happy because the sword made a noise when it was happy. Kisame joked, "Ha ha, this is fun." The shark man said, "We should do this more often." Naruto didn't answer. Instead, he took the Tanbogiri out of his right hand and opened it. Ryu was off balance when Kisame made fun of him by saying, "Nice sword you have there, too bad mine is bigger." It didn't work, though, because Naruto wasn't bothered. They both got into a sword stance. Naruto held his with two hands by his side, ready to strike like a cobra, while Kisame held his with two hands facing in front of him. Both men ran very fast at each other. And both of their swords are made of metal and clank loudly. That was the start of a big kenjutsu match. The next time Kisame tried to hit him from the side, Ryu would block it and then use his natural speed to get around Kisame's defenses. But Kisame kept Naruto away with his huge size. Plus, the blonde was amazed that the shark man could use that huge sword like it was a toothpick. When Kisame and Ryu locked swords, Ryu said, "Hey, you're pretty good." Naruto didn't answer. He just looked at Kisame, who didn't seem to be scared of the Sharingan in his eyes. Naruto knew that Kisame might not be affected by genjutsu because he had a symbiotic relationship with his sword. This meant that Samahada could feed Kisame chakra to break him out of any genjutsu. Kisame tried to knock Naruto off balance with a leg sweep, but the blonde jumped in the air to avoid it. Kisame then swung Samahada in a full circle and hit Naruto, but the boy had perfectly placed his sword to block it, sending him flying backwards. Not wanting to be stopped, Kisame went after the blonde and used Samahada to try to cut Naruto's head off, but the blonde blocked it with his Tanbogiri and fell to the ground from how hard it hit. Even though Naruto was strong because he trained with Madara, Kisame was pressing down on his claymore and was stronger than Naruto. Naruto could feel the sword getting closer to his shoulder, but he couldn't kick Kisame or knock him off balance. He got ready for just you by making two hand seals, which was hard because he had to keep Kisame from shredding his shoulder. I yelled, "Kamisho Unari," wolf-piercing howl, in my head as Samahada hit him on the shoulder. At the same time, Kisame pulled Samahada toward him, which tore Naruto's shoulder apart and let blood into the water. At the same time, Naruto charged up his chakra in his throat and let out a loud howl that sounded like both a bell ringing and a wolf howl. Kisame was hit in the chest by a beam of chakra surrounded by soundwave. Like rings, which broke most of his ribs and sent him flying away. With his left hand, Naruto held his bleeding shoulder, which made him grimace, and he complained about how bad his cloak was. He closed the Tanbogiri and used medical ninjutsu on his shoulder, which was still working. Also grinning, Naruto thought that Kisame would be a tough opponent because the swordsman could heal very quickly. Naruto liked holding back against strong opponents more than anything else. He loved getting hurt, but why? It helps him remember that he is still a person and can still die. He thinks that being immortal is bad because it means that when you fight, you have no reason to fight other than a few other reasons. Naruto has the most fun when his life is at stake in a fight. Kisame was atop the water, floating. The kicks kept coming at him, making him feel like 12 donkeys had hit him. Kisame thinks Ryu was around when he was that powerful. He had now found his new favorite thing to do. The fighting Rai. When he moved his middle, he made a face. He was thankful to still have his chest. Samahada was giving him chakra right now to help heal his broken ribs. He stood up straight and got ready to charge at Naruto again. While Rai did the same thing. He took the Tanbogiri off its seal and slid into a different stance. His right shoulder hurt a little, but he ignored it. A shark will attack at any time if it sees a sign of weakness. It looked like both men were ready to keep fighting with Kenjutsu. Kisame had to be careful to stay out of Ryu's mouth, but he also had to watch out for Dragon's mouth if he didn't want to get hit by that technique that felt like a shockwave. It turned out that Kisame was right to be scared because his opponent kept firing the howling shockwave that was killing all the trees nearby. Being smart, Kisame slashed his sword against the water, scattering it all over the place. This temporarily blinded Ryu, and Kisame used the chance to punish Yokaze. He kicked him in the gut, hit him over the head, and stomped on Ryu's leg. But Naruto wasn't hurt much by them because all the time he spent as the White Zetsu punching has made him much stronger. He was able to handle different hits and kicks, and his healing power helped him a lot in that area. Something strange was coming off of Samahata, which Kisame could feel but the sword hadn't known. "Samahata is in pain?" asked Kiasme in a quiet voice. "Is that the Yokaze's sword? What kind of blade is that?" Naruto took advantage of Kisame's time to think. He got kicked in the stomach by Roundhouse and then slashed him diagonally across the chest. Kisame was able to dodge the cut, but the shark man was knocked out by the large cut across his chest. Where did this cut come from? His sword didn't even touch me. Kisame thought. Samahata didn't want to heal the wound because it wasn't that bad. A flying double kick was thrown at Kisame by Naruto, but he blocked it with Samahata and pushed Naruto away, sending him flying back a few meters. But what Hoshigaki didn't expect was for Naruto to boomerang the Tanbogiri, which had a wind aura around it. As the sword flew at Kisame, he blocked it and watched it fly off somewhere else. When he turned around, Ryu's fist was getting closer to his stomach. It hit him hard, and Kisame fell over. Naruto smiled as he had won. That move was called Kodo Hoku, which means soaring hawk. The hine is like this. The Kodo Hoku creates a wind aura around any bladed weapon so it can fly between enemies and rip them apart. It could also be used as a distraction if it didn't work, and it would always go back to the person who cast it. Even better, it only required mastery of the hine and no hands. In an instant, the Tanbogiri's wind aura returned to Naruto's hands. The blonde then spun around Kisame and cut the tendons in his legs, making him unable to move. Kisame threw Samahata at Ryu from behind to try to hit him. But Naruto jumped away to stay safe. This was great so far for Naruto. He looked up and saw that the sun was going down. Soon, the moon would follow. Kisame, whose tendons were being healed by Samahata, said, "I have to compliment you, Ryu. You're a lot stronger than I originally thought." Naruto didn't show any emotion. For the reason that he didn't want to kill Kisame, and Nagato wouldn't agree with it either. Sweden. Fukagufu Shogekiha, water release, shark tornado shockwave. Kisame yelled when he was done learning the hand seals of the jutsu. On the horizon, a tornado made of water sharks that was as tall as the trees around them began to spiral in on Naruto. The sharks also had the ability to tear apart anyone caught in the spiral. The blonde did something that most people wouldn't do. He shot at the water shark tornado like a rocket. For a short time, he threw the Tanbogiri and used the Kodo Hoku to make it spin around and try to hit Kisame. Naruto used his hands to make a wind jutsu that either stopped the shark tornado or messed it up completely. Naruto yelled, "Futon! Hurricane Degeki Cabe, wind release, hurricane striking wall." He held out his hands, and a small hurricane appeared and hit the shark tornado head on. A loud crash could be heard. It was pretty much a tie because wind wasn't weak against water and water wasn't weak against wind either. Naruto put his left hand on his right arm and began to gather chakra in his right hand. He made sure Kisame didn't see him do this jutsu. It was hard for him to tell whether his hurricane or Kisame's sharknado would win the power battle. He didn't want to get ripped apart. Soon, a loud sound that sounded like a bell could be heard all over the field. Naruto held a white Rasengan that had 4 wind blades going around it. He turned the Rasen Shuriken around and threw it at the 2 jutsu that were spiraling round and round. It was seen that a dome of small wind blades tore the hurricane and the sharknado apart when it hit. He knew Kisame was outside the blast's path, which meant the likely future pawn would be safe. Naruto was trying to keep his balance and keep the water out of his eyes. The wind was so strong that his cloak was flapping violently, and his sleeves were flapping in the air. As Kisame fought off a single blade surrounded by a wind aura, he tried to stay on his feet. At that point, Zetsu melded out of a tree to watch the fight. The plant man hadn't been watching the fight from the start because Naruto the first kept his attention on something else. Zetsu made the choice to remain alone. It was always possible for Naruto to hear what the two Zetsu were talking about when they were close. White Zetsu said, "Naruto is really holding back. But when the moon rises, he won't be holding back as much," Black Zetsu said. White Zetsu asked, "What do you mean?" Black Zetsu asked, "You've forgotten, haven't you?" The white half spoke back with a squeak. "Well, soon you will see what I mean." The wind dome died down quickly, and the area was not hurt. The water also went back to its original shape. Naruto saw the Tonbogiri coming and grabbed the sword in his right hand when it came back to him. Kisame, on the other hand, was a little out of breath but otherwise fine. "That sword is fucking annoying," Kisame said as he got better. Even though the sword was a pain, the fight was still too much fun. It had been a long time since Kisame felt so alive. He didn't know that the battle was almost over, which was bad for him. Naruto told Kisame, "Now I see why Obito praises you so much." Naruto stopped speaking when he felt a light flow over him. "You're truly someone worthy of strength."
And I would low.
He finally saw that the sun was going down. And a new light was put in its place. He thought he saw a pale white goddess watching over him like a guardian when he looked behind him. He wasn't too close or too far away. It was now easy to see the full moon in the sky. Its light shining on the dark. Kisame didn't understand. Why did Rai care so much about the moon? Naruto, whose eyes were still on the moon, asked, "Can you hear it?" "It's euphoria. The moon. One day I will hold it in my hands," Naruto said in a whisper. Kisame didn't hear Naruto's words, but he heard something else. "I'm afraid that I gave grown tired from this battle, Kisame," Rai said. "I'm afraid I have to end it now." As he looked, Kisame raised an eyebrow. Ryu hadn't turned around to face him yet. What was he talking about? Black Zetsu said, "Here it comes." Naruto sealed the Tonbogiri into his right wrist seal. And went through some hand seals to activate a special transformation. Dog, tiger, snake, rat, horse, dragon, monkey, ram, ox, boar, dragon. Thought Naruto as he weaved together the hand seals. "Yabanana Basaka Henken, bestial berserker transformation," whispered Naruto. Kisame felt something flow from Samahata and it felt like fear. What was Ryu doing? Kisame received his answer where he saw something change in Ryu's appearance. Naruto felt an overwhelming power flow through him. He had only used this mode once before and now was his second time using it. His appearance began to change. His ears became pointed like a wolf's, his canine became bared and more fang-like, and his hair became manic and wild where his ponytail tore through the bandages holding it where it was now loose and free, and his hair slightly resembled a lion's mane. The sclera in his eyes turned black and his pupils became slits. His muscles became slightly larger but still kept their lean look. And a scar-like X sprouted between his eyes which ended below his cheekbones and near his hairline. Naruto breathed in a large amount of air in content as if nothing in the world could affect him. That is the Yabanana Basaka Henken, a special mode created by the wolf tribe and can be learned by their summoners. Clarified Black Zetsu. While Zetsu whistled in astonishment, he could feel the raw and wild chakra pulsing through Naruto. "What does it do?" asked White Zetsu. "It's similar to Sage mode in that it allows one to absorb natural energy. However, this mode is reliant on a person's own natural energy from within them. They look inside their core and stabilize their own natural energy and coalesce it within their chakra, instead of relying on a person's surroundings. It was created by the Wolf Tribe when a clan of shinobi received a power from the Ryuchi Cave that allowed them access to powers similar to Sage mode. However, any person of that clan was mentally unstable and their power was inferior to that of Sage mode. So the wolves created their own power to bestow on their summoners superior to the clan's Sage transformation but still inferior to Sage mode, and the Yabanana Basaka Henken was created," explained Black Zetsu. "So Naruto's powers are tripled to what they originally were," stated White Zetsu, where the black half answered him with a grunt. "However, there is one deadly side effect to this power," spoke Black Zetsu to its white counterpart. "The form brings out the person's purest instincts and savage impulses, and while Naruto is under the influence of the transformation, he will be more wild, primal and uncontrollable. The transformation brings out the person's animalistic instincts and makes it surface in the transformation. So he is deadliest while under the transformation's effects.
Stated White Zetsu.
Yes. Though he will still have some level of control, but we should still be wary. He might cause some collateral damage to everything around him, and when he's angry he'll destroy everything around him. With Naruto, he was still staring at the moon as if drowsily. His Sharingan red matched the black of his sclera. He brought his hand up to his face and began opening and closing it. He grabbed his cloak and threw it off him, insert fangirl squeal, where his lean torso was showcased to the world. He turned to look at Kisame, who was a little unnerved with those black and red eyes. Naruto had yet to say anything. The wind was flowing wildly while his hair moved with it. Kisame noticed something on left side of his chest. It was a scar that looked like a lightning bolt struck it over where high here should be. And without warning, Naruto roared like a beast and flew at Kisame, who barely brought Samahata up in time to block the attack, and not only that, he was pushed back tremendously where the shark man had trouble staying on his feet. He pushed Ryu, who snarled at the former Kiri Nin, and charged again at the S. Ranked shinobi. Kisame was completely put on the defensive. Ryu's attacks were now wild and unpredictable. He didn't notice the punch aimed for the left side of his temple, which he narrowly ducked under, but he didn't fail to register the kick coming into contact with his chin, which launched him into the air where Naruto followed after him. Ryu performed the Kage Buyo, Shadow of the Dancing Leaf, to match Kisame's movements in the air, where the bestial man somersaulted and brought his elbow down on Kisame's head, causing him to crash into the miniature ocean. Naruto followed right behind Kisame's plummet and roared all the way. And when Kisame touched the waterbed, he was punched in the gut by Naruto. The punch was so powerful that all the water around them created a small pocket of air inside the small ocean. Naruto latched his hand around Kisame's head and threw his face across the ground, causing a large skid trail where Kisame's head was. The shark man was wrecked with pain and his face was bloody, so this was Ryu's special and unique power. The water he had summoned was dispersing into droplets around him, no longer holding shape. Zetsu was watching everything transpire and he could detect that something was wrong. He's still holding back even under the influence of the beast. Spoke Black Zetsu, because if Ryu wanted someone dead while using his beast mode, then Kisame would be dead already. Naruto unsealed the Tanbogiri and launched himself at Kisame, where he prepared to stab him. "Come on!" yelled Naruto. Just because he was more manic didn't mean he couldn't utter intelligent language. "I will leave you with nothing." Naruto threw the Tanbogiri where the wind aura carried it and tried to wound Kisame, while Naruto was going through hand seals faster than before. Kaden. Kurai Hano Sume, Fire Release, Dark Flame Claw. Growled Naruto as 3 columns of flame shaped like a crescent moons as tall as large trees streaked across the ground toward Kisame, who had finally regained himself. When he got up on his feet, he registered 3 flame-like claws and a wind sword heading towards him. With all his speed, Kisame sliced through the flame claws, but he couldn't escape the wind sword, where he received a deep cut on his side. He dropped to one knee and held himself on the ground. When he looked up, he saw Ryu standing over him like a predator. And he was emitting a growling sound. Maybe fighting a guy who supposedly claims that he's Madara Uchiha wasn't a good idea after all, thought Kisame. He got kneed in the face, which made him fall to the ground and dropped Samahata. "I want to see you die fighting," snarled Naruto as he started pounding Kisame's face with his fist. "All will be lost to you," said Naruto. He felt something gnawing on his right arm and saw Samahata. The sword was bandaged and it now had a mouth at its tip. Naruto got off Kisame and threw Samahata away. Naruto huffed and was about to return beating Kisame, when he received a large glob of water smack him in the face and sent him skidding back a distance. "Even when I put as much chakra as I could into that technique, he looks unfazed," thought Kisame as he picked himself up. While in beast mode, Naruto doesn't feel pain and his already amazing healing ability doubles. "Yes, that's more like it, fight back," shouted Naruto. He performed some hand seals and prepared a lightning jutsu. Raiden. Hekiriki Hakushu, Lightning Release, Thunderclap. Yelled Ryu as a bolt of lightning fell from the sky, hitting Kisame and causing a bright light. When he looked back at Kisame, he saw that Samahata was protecting him from the bolt of lightning. Naruto growled bestially. That sword is getting pretty annoying, and it was healing Kisame's wounds with the chakra it had devoured. Naruto made an all-too-familiar hand seal. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. And a perfect clone of the beast Naruto appeared. The breezed through hand seals preparing a fire jutsu. Kaden. Goryuka no Jutsu, fire release, great dragon fire technique. And blew out a large amount of fire chakra in the shape of a dragon head flying towards Kisame, who brought up Samahata to protect himself from the fire despite how Samahata doesn't like fire chakra. To Kisame this was getting ridiculous. And from now he's never fighting Ryu again. He'd rather get castrated than fight Ryu again. At first it was fun, but when the moon rose of the horizon everything changed. Kisame was the one being dominated and he could venture a guess that Ryu can defeat Itachi. Hell, he now knows that Yokaze has been holding back during the entire fight. And suddenly out of the flames came the original Ryu soaring towards Kisame with the Tanbogiri in hand. He grasped the hilt of Samahata and performed a spinning heel kick on Kisame's face, taking out several of his teeth. Naruto, still grasping Samahata in his left hand, went to attack Kisame with his own sword. Samahata in retaliation created spikes from its hilt to force Ryu to let go of it. But it did little as Naruto was now immune to pain. And with the Tanbogiri and the Samahata, Naruto laid waste to Kisame. He slashed and cut him with the Tanbogiri and shredded and tore him with Samahata in a wild flurry, with Naruto roaring throughout it. And with a double strike to the chest, Kisame coughed up blood, crashed to the floor, his body a bloody mess. He was breathing harshly and his blood stained the dirty wet ground. Naruto stood over him with a blank look, still wielding Samahata, which he let go of. He deactivated his bestial berserker transformation and knelt down next to the dying Kisame, whose cloak was torn and nothing but mere remnants of cloth. Naruto made 3 hand seals for a handy medical jutsu. Ketsueki Hantai Ridden no Jutsu, blood body return technique. And in a few seconds all the blood Kisame had lost was returning to his wounds and injuries. But the wounds were still open and needed to be healed quickly. Samahata approached its master and for the final time during the fight it healed all of his wounds by transferring chakra. Ryu unsealed a scroll from his left wrist seal and ink from his right wrist seal and started writing a message. He rolled up the scroll and dumped it on Kisame's unconscious body. And with that he left the field. And Zetsu returning to the original Naruto's location. And no one there saw the crow perched on a tree watching the whole fight with its Sharingan eyes. It flew off to an unknown place, letting out a loud caw. When it arrived to its intended point of arrival, someone was writing on a scroll and tied the scroll to the back of the crow, where it flew off to Anther location.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.